He's on Pluto.
Looks like we're on. What's up, y'all? Welcome to Talking Shop. Today we're talking to the man, the myth, the legend, Joe Vezzetti. What's happening, Joe?
Howdy, everybody.
We got everybody else can introduce themselves in direct order. We have the same order. So, Matt, you're up next.
Ahmad Hotep, producer, songwriter, engineer, Fresno, California. Fresno was cracking.
Andre.
Yeah, Andre Mallet's from Cologne, doing some mixes, mainly friends and family stuff and consulting, but having fun to meet all the international people.
Natasi.
Hi, I'm Natasi. I'm a singer-songwriter working with Ma'at Hotep.
Sweet. I'm Bill C. This is obviously a fake background because I'm always in Manhattan. So what's going on, Joe? What's new? What were we doing yesterday?
Well, yesterday we had Daniel Lenoir in at the studio, and we were doing a thing. There's a show we produce out of here. One of the many things we have that comes in here regularly called the Vinyl Shelf. And the Vinyl Shelf is hosted by Jim Wilson, who is Daniel's bass player. And what Jim does, and where we fit in, is he'll come in with an artist. They'll interview and they'll play music. Then they take that from there and it goes to post, where they do the edits on the interview to splice music in between, and it ends up being a radio show going out into the world. So yeah, we've been doing that for the last several months now. We picked that up as part of the many studio things we do. So typical Vinyl Shelf show starts off with a cocktail hour where people get together and mingle, and they get to meet whoever the artist is being interviewed and so forth. So like, for example, last month was Billy Vera. A month before that was Doug Pinnick, which Doug played with King's X and had a new album out under his own band, Grinder Blues. Billy Vera is such an interesting read. He's the only guy I know who's had a hit in every decade since he's been starting his professional music career as a songwriter and artist since the 60s. And the last show we did with Billy, that was the first one I started sending out to everybody, because it's like, yeah, they're good shows, but Billy's was the one that was like first full of like a lot of musical like tips and tricks about stuff. Like he was telling us a story about, yeah, man. So I wrote this one song because I was originally writing it for Nancy Sinatra, but it didn't pan out and she didn't want it, but it got picked up like a month later by Dolly Parton and became a big hit for her, that kind of stuff. So, so that was like the first one I sent out. And this last one last night was Daniel Lenoir. And for those who don't know Daniel Lenoir, you should. He's the soundtrack of a lot of great movies, albums. He's worked with bands like U2. He's worked with Robbie Robertson. He's worked with Willie Nelson, Emmylou Harris, Neil Young, aside from being a solo artist himself and songwriter. So yeah, it was a good one last night. We had a nice short interview and then a nice long recording session,
Very cool. And when you say we and our studio, which studio are we talking about?
We're talking about Cherokee Studios, which is in Hollywood. And when I say we, it's myself and our studio staff, that comes along for the ride kind of thing.
Very cool. Andre, you were saying something about microphone setup before we started. You're muted.
Yeah. I saw on Joe's website, he mentioned the setup for the microphones. And I said, I like it very much because he's using a lot of traditional, old stuff, but it's working. You don't need high, sophisticated, expensive, whatever new stuff. So I like it very much. I will be interested to listen to the stuff, but using those microphones is quite interesting.
No, we use what we have, So like, for example, last night we had Audio Technica ATM 25 on the kick drum.
Yeah.
Single microphone. Or I shouldn't say we, but normally I don't do any more than one microphone on the kick. And that's just because it gives me what I need with the house drum kit we have. I can't say I always do it that way, but it's one of those things when you listen to it, you're like, yeah, that's good. That's what we're looking for, kind of thing. We had a KM86, which is a Neumann mic on the top of the snare drum. The KM86s originally were invented for German broadcast, and they were a nice German broadcast mic for a long time. Then people like Motown in the 70s decided, you know what, those are the best mics ever. So Motown bought a lot of them, and Mo West was full of KM86s, KM86i to be exact, the I being the international version, which is the same as the KM86. It just has an XLR connector instead of the German DIN standard. On the bottom snare, we had an SM57, again, fairly standard, but it gives us what we're looking for as far as the snare drum sound. On our toms, we had FET 47s, again, Neumann mics. They work on toms really well. And for overheads, we had a pair of RCA 77s. And with the RCAs, we had them set up in unidirectional mode, which if you look in the manual is the closest you're going to get to having a cardioid pattern on a ribbon mic, So we had that set up and it worked out really well for us. Daniel was happy, which is the best part. It's always nice when the artist comes in and goes, hey, this is cool. We like this, So it worked out really well in the end.
Yeah.
What else is going on, Matt? What's happening?
I'm sitting over here. Joe had posted about a BSS 402. I had never heard of it. I went and looked it up, and it said limiter de-esser. Is that right, Joe?
Uh-oh.
The 402s. Okay. That's another little BSS is Brooks Siren Systems. And at one point in time, there were an amazing company out of England that made a lot of amazing cool gear, a lot of it used in live sound. The 402 is a compressor limiter that has a DS function on it. And some people will tell you it's the best de-esser on the planet. So I'm working on a couple right now to fix up for the studio because we picked some up on the cheapy cheap, and unfortunately for BSS, they got bought by Harman Kardon. And being a Harman Kardon company, they're a little more difficult to get a hold of and a little more difficult to get information out of, which I get that, but Harman does that with all their companies. So it's like shot in the dark, see what happens,
No, I looked it up and I saw that I had never heard of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, if Joe is messing with this, it's got to be good.
Well, I picked that up from Steve Albini. Not that particular unit, but I picked up the idea of using them from Steve Albini because he talks about them for some of the drum stuff that he does. And
I was about to ask you, what all do you use it for? Or was he using it for? Okay.
He was using it on drums, and it sounds like Steve Albini fantastic, And if you're into those kinds of sonics that he gets, which I am, it's like, okay, he's using that. Let's see what that does if I get a hold of one, see what we can do with it, When you find stuff that works and you find other people that find stuff that works and you like what they're doing, it's like, well, wait a minute. What are they using? Maybe I should try that.
Have you tried it on vocals yet?
What's up?
Have you tried it on vocals yet?
Yeah, actually I have.
So what's cracking?
It's good. It's very good. Does a really good job of de-essing. But for vocals, I prefer the BSS 901, which the 901 is the only analog dynamic EQ ever made. And as much as we have dynamic EQs in digital land, there was only one ever model on the planet that was an analog one. And again, you hear from other engineers, yo, check this out. So you check it out and go, yeah, that's cool. Bob Clearmountain will tell you that it's like vocal cheating. So if you're looking for like the ultimate to dynamically control whatever vocals you need to control, that seems to be like one of his favorites. And I like it too, because it only compresses when you get past the threshold at your various frequency points, So it's like a 4-band EQ, but it's got it's a 4-band EQ that has expansion and compression built in on each band. And depending on how you set it up, you can either compress or expand at those frequencies and bandwidth, you know? So it does a lot of cool things to control vocals.
You're saying that's the 901, BSS
That's
901.
yeah.
Okay, because when I looked up the 402, it was under $500.
That's
which,
right.
Bruh, that's
yeah,
very
dude,
affordable.
they're great.
And the
You know,
901
and the
runs
901s
about
are
what?
around 5 to 7, you know?
Oh, bruh. Okay. So yeah, that alone right there, this whole thing that alone right there coming in to get, say, the 901 for vocals, and you're saying that's kicking butt, and and the
Oh, yeah.
names you
Well,
say
again,
use it.
you know, Bob
Yeah.
Clearmountain says it's like vocal cheating.
Right.
And when Clearmountain's one of those guys, when he says something, you're like, yeah, I'll take note. You know, he's had a few things that did really well.
All right, so you're the
If
chief
you
engineer at
recommend it.
Cherokee, right?
What's up?
You're the chief engineer at Cherokee, right?
I am. Yeah.
You know what hit me this morning?
Uh-oh.
You got when I go to LA, a lot of times I'll give Joe a call, and it's an emergency. It's like, Joe, I need a place to eat now. That's good. Blah blah blah. And he gives me a good place to eat every time, places I never heard of. And it hit me this morning. I'm like, oh, you know what, Joe? This is what Joe needs to be able to do this, because with his clientele coming in, he has to be able to he has to know some of these good places. Because I always wonder why you knew these like awesome places to eat that I never even heard of and places I would never go. But it just hit me that you've probably gone who knows where with who knows who.
Well, it's one of those things. If you're in the studio business as a studio, you have to have a concierge person, like they have at a hotel. You have to have somebody who knows this stuff. That way, when an artist comes to you for whatever, you can put them in the right direction. Some of the places we've been to, like Bossa Nova, they're open till about 3 a.m. every night of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're leaving the studio at like 2 a.m. or 1 a.m., you can still go there and get a bite, like people like to do, you know? So a lot of that is just because it's the client service industry, and you got to know these things, because when your clients come in, it's not all just about what gear you have, you know, and everybody got Pro Tools nowadays. What sets you apart, you know? So you got to know these things.
That was one of my next questions is, with all of us having all this gear, what use is it a studio like Cherokee? What's provided extra that's what are they useful for?
Okay, well, for starters, we got a large live room, and depending on the project, we can fit up to 30 musicians in there comfortably and 40 musicians uncomfortably. And I say it that way because if you need to do a string date, you're going to have 30 violin player or 30 orchestra players, maybe more, you know? So what do we offer? That's one of the biggest things we offer, is we have a nice large live space. So you can come down and track, you know, and everybody's got Pro Tools at their house, but most people don't have a good acoustic space to go record in. You know, we also offer a well-tuned, well-designed control room, which is another thing that, I have Pro Tools at home, but not everybody has an acoustically designed control room that gives you an accurate listening experience of what's been recorded or being recorded. You know, we have an old Trident A range. That's another big selling point. But, you know, that just facilitates everything we're doing as far as making a record. See, back in the old days, and I hate to do that in the old days stuff, but back in the old days, there was a lot of things.
Put some gray on your beard right there.
That's right. Don't
date
yourself.
Don't
date yourself. Don't do it.
There was things studios were supposed to provide that you couldn't get anywhere else. If you go back way farther, each studio had their own little sonic sound. You know, that's why you had studios in Philadelphia that sounded completely different than studios in New York, which sounded different than studios in Chicago, and on and on and on. And once we all started using the same gear, it's like, well, what sets your studio apart from this other studio? You know, you both have an SSL console, you both have Studer tape machines, whatever. You know, what's going to make people want to go there versus going somewhere else? So you really got to have the whole package these days, because it's not so much that you're competing with the home studio and people who have Pro Tools at home. You're competing with the mindset of, oh, I can just do it at home because I have Pro Tools, you know? So you got to be able to offer something to people that they can't get anywhere else, or they think they can't get anywhere else. Yeah, there's a lot of rooms in this town that are really nice recording rooms, but it's beyond having a nice recording room. It's about giving them the experience of thinking that I want to do this here because they got this cool vibe. They got this, they got that, whatever, you know? So you just have to be on top of all of it, whether they need a place to eat at 2 a.m, or whether they need some, or whether they need coffee at 10 a.m, you know, you got to be able to provide it all. And if you can't, know where you can, you know where to send them to, be able to do it in a manner that's efficient. You know, if we send somebody out to go pick up dinner, you know, it's like, well, they got to be back pretty quickly, so the dinner's still warm when they get here, you know? So it's just the whole experience and package. That's what you want. That's what you're hoping to get. That's what you're hoping to give, you know, because that's what keeps people coming back. Because again, like you said, everybody got Pro Tools, you know?
So people are not stupid for spending money. These people are not stupid for spending money coming into the studio, huh? I got you.
I don't think anyone's stupid for investing in what they believe in.
Yep.
Right.
You know, it's not about spending money. It's an investment.
Yeah,
You know, and if you have a belief in whatever project you're working in, whether you're the producer, whether you're the artist, whether you're in the band, whether you're the engineer, what are you going to do? Do you want to, I hate to say half-ass it, but do you want to half-ass it, or do you want to go to a place that you feel will give you the results you want in a manner that fits the budget you're looking for, in a manner that's comfortable for you, you know?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I got a lot of answers to my offers regarding a special product for recording and mixing, because a lot of studio owners say, oh, it doesn't fit in the workflow. Oh, it's so special. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So a friend of mine and me, we built this tube console.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, maybe you saw it in the web. It's a so-called presser machine at 12 channels, completely handcrafted and completely without transistors, only tubes and stuff. And we started to make an offer to German studios that we said we have a case for it, and we bring it to you,
right?
And you pay a small rent, and you mention it on your production. And we had only, in 5 years, we had only one studio who did it. And we had, besides of this, we made 4 productions on our own. We went into a studio, in a good studio, and said, okay, we have a jazz combo or whatever, and we make the production. So it's a bit difficult to convince people nowadays to make something extraordinary and special, because everyone is saying, yeah, I don't have money, I don't have time, it has to go fast. And it did, for us, it didn't work. So we still have it. It's still in our room in Hamburg, and we are doing stuff with it and also mixing on it, but there's no business case for it after 5 years.
That's too bad. I'm familiar with that board. I know a lot of people have talked about how wonderful it looks. I'm sure it sounds fantastic. You know,
it sounds fantastic. Yeah. Okay, but that's only a small history from my personal experiences.
Right.
How many people are actually there, Joe? It's you, Bruce?
At the moment, well, let's see, today in-house, we have myself, we have Bruce. I'm hiding in the tech shop at the moment because, well, the Matrix is in the tech shop. You step in and go into that time warp. It's myself, it's Bruce's business partner, Tiffany. And then we have our 2 assistants in today, Max and Brigitte. We're setting up for a session that's starting tomorrow where they're using analog tape We still fire up the old tape machine every now and then, so yesterday, not Friday, sorry, Thursday, I was making sure it was all in working order, getting the steam to work on it so the motors would run and all of that fun stuff that we do with analog tape machines. No, they're not steam driven, but we were getting our MTR 90 by Otari ready for Sunday because, they're coming in Sunday to track the tape.
Now, Nadisi, come on in. You've introduced yourself. You have any questions for Joe? And I know we want to get in there and do something with him. It'll be his experience. Your experience with Joe is going to be totally different than everything we've been doing. Got any questions for Joe or whatever?
Well, yeah, I like to do a lot of research on Ma'at's friends in the music industry and just the music industry in general. And I was trying to research you, and I couldn't find any of your song credits or anything like that.
Oh yeah, I tend to stay well hidden,
So,
with reason. But what would you like to know exactly?
well, I know you worked with Timbaland and Missy Elliott and Aaliyah, and I really admire a lot of that work. What did you work on exactly?
Well, back when I first came to California, which was well over 20 years ago, I got started at studios like Westlake Audio, and back then it was customary and pretty common that in order to get started in this business, you actually worked at a studio for a paycheck, and you'd start off as a runner and work your way up to being an assistant and being in the rooms with everybody. And back then there was a real sense of camaraderie amongst all the studio staff because nobody was looking at it like competition so much as we need to have everybody working on the same playing field and being as brilliant as we can be, because again, that's part to bringing clients into the door. So by working at Westlake, we got involved with those sessions and projects, with a lot of that stuff. And that it wasn't because they sought me out at the time. A lot of it was because I was working at the studio they sought out and they wanted to work at that studio for various reasons, so it just was by chance with a lot of that stuff. Same thing with studios like the Back Room, you happen to be working studio staff and you get assigned the sessions and so forth. So that's how all of that came about. By now it's people seek me out for doing things, because I've done it long enough, and I do tend to stay hidden for various reasons with a lot of that stuff, mainly because most of the databases aren't up to date on a lot of that, and to send in corrections takes forever. And so forth. So yeah, you'll find me with like Steve Vai albums because I spent 5 years working with him. And you'll find me with like albums like Tracy Guns, who was one of the original founding members of Guns N' Roses before it was Guns N' Roses, and a bunch of other things. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's missing in the quote unquote resume. But as far as I'm concerned, it don't matter. The check cashed. My money was in my pocket. I was able to put a roof over my head and, all the other merits of life that you got to deal with, gas in the car and so forth. So yeah, there's people who are really particular about seeking that stuff out. I'm not one of them. I came from a different era where wasn't about me. It was about us, and it was a collective effort trying to make the best records we could. And you left that kind of stuff up to the lead producers or in the executive producers, because the executive producer was a guy at the record label, and the guy who was actually producing the stuff his name was on it, for various reasons, with the work that they do and what producers were supposed to do. They were the in between the studio and the label. They were the ones who took all the responsibility, with all of that stuff. So yeah, put their name on it. People like me, we're just, setting up mics, running stuff here, running there, doing things for other engineers who are in-house as part of those projects. And it's just like, yeah, you're just a cog in the wheel, and it's cool to be a cog in the wheel because you can see a lot of cool things, but that's just the nature of the business and how it was working at the time. all of that's changed in the last 20 years, you know, some of it for the better, some of it for the worse, you know, so it's just one of those things. It's just, I was always happy with the fact that my check went in the bank and I got my money out and I was able to do things with it. So, you know, that was always more important than my name's here, my name's there, you know.
Okay. You talk about, you keep mentioning this change that happened where everybody went from being for each other to just me. So what do you think caused that?
Well, the industry caused that, you know. There was a long period where budgets were big.
Yeah.
And with big budgets allowed people to be involved in projects, you know, and a lot of stuff in projects where, like, for example, there's projects I did where literally I was paid to transfer tapes, you know, because at the time, not everybody had Pro Tools, not everybody had, you know, the same formats. So I did a project with, you may remember Meredith Brooks. She had a hit single with the song Bitch. She at the time was producing Jennifer Love Hewitt, who was doing an album, because, you know, actors and actresses need to do albums apparently. And I got a phone call from what was her engineer going, "Hey man, we have all this stuff on ADAT. We need it in Pro Tools." I'm like, "Great, send it down." You know, so you spend an hour transferring all their ADAT tapes over into Pro Tools or however long it took. And it's like, there you go. You've now worked with Meredith Brooks. You now worked with Jennifer Love Hewitt. You won't be on the album, but you have their tapes, you have their stuff, you know? And there was a lot of that kind of thing that went on regularly in this business. But yeah, it did all kind of change. And the whole attitude and the atmosphere changed. You know, budgets got smaller. Record companies started demanding more. You know, it used to be that with a record label, they'd sign an artist that they liked, knowing full well we're probably not going to make any money on the first album, because that's like your introductory album. We'd like to have a hit as a record label with an artist, but that doesn't always happen, you know. And there used to be this period where they're like, okay, we know that you probably won't earn any money on the first album. You might earn money on the second album, but by the third album, you know, if we really do the artist development right, you'll be playing sold out stadiums and so forth. There's a very famous quote with Elton John where he talks about his manager in the United States was telling him, don't, and I don't want to fuck this up, but I'm going to anyway, because I don't remember all of it. But basically he was saying, you know, don't be bigger than you are. So for example, Elton, who's huge at the time when he was coming up, it's like, yeah, you don't want to play the stadium this time around when you come to Los Angeles. You want to play the smaller club, and you want to create a ticket frenzy, because you want to like build up that drive. That way, the next time you come around, you're playing a bigger venue, you know, and you want to work that way up to being the huge star that he is, rightfully so, you know, but you don't want to just start off, yeah, I'm going to play a big stadium and I can't fill it, you know? So there was a lot of artist development and working your way up into these things that just has kind of like fallen out the window. You know, now they expect you to show up with the album in hand and they expect to hear a hit single on it, you know? And I know a few artists who got caught in that kerfluffle where they were expected to deliver a hit. And it's just like, well, I don't know what a hit is. You tell me what a hit is, you know? I don't know what's going to sell tomorrow. So it's just one of those things. So yeah, there was a lot of that change. And then on the technical side, it all changed with it. You know, as budgets got smaller, bands and producers and engineers, everybody got Pro Tools rigs, you know, and other DAWs, because I can work on stuff at home where I don't have to pay rent. I don't have to go to a studio. And as far as they're concerned, it's good enough to do whatever they need to do, you know? So it's just a lot of changes in the last 20 years, some for the better, some for the worse. I, for one, wouldn't want to wake up in my bedroom and sit at a Pro Tools system all day, because that's just not inspiring to me. You know, one of the things we talked about, since we talked about earlier about Lenoir being in last night, me and him were having a chat about serving the musician and serving the music. And that by far is the most important thing. You know, you want the artist to be comfortable. You want the artist to feel inspired. You want to give them a reason, you know? You don't just want to be like, yeah, you're coming in today, we're gonna record this. No, you want to be excited. You want to champion them, you know. And it was funny, what sparked it all off is somebody asked me about our analog tape machine, and they're like, do people still use that? And I was like, well, yeah, absolutely, they still use that. There are people who of the belief it allows them to do certain things that they can't get anywhere else. Are people who will tell you it sounds better. I'm not one of those people. To me, it sounds different because I can prove that it sounds different, but it does on a creative side force you to do certain things that a lot of people feel are better for the music because you're limited to a fine number of tracks. You know, it's not like unlimited undos. It's not unlimited tracks. It's you have 24. What are you going to fit in 24 that allows you, you know, to convey whatever musically you want to convey, you know? And so you kind of got to think about things differently. Do I really need that 10-minute guitar solo? Probably not. You know, so there's a lot of that changed as well. And you can, for me, since like when I got my start in the business, the main format that was everywhere was 2-inch analog tape for multi-track, and then 1/4-inch or 1/2-inch 2-track for mixing. They had digital machines like the DAT tapes, and most digital machines beyond that were regulated to post-production houses, you know, and home studios. The one professional large format dash machines were $250,000 from Sony or from Studer, you know, so not every place had those, as cool as they were, you know. So analog tape was like the main format, and we had a certain way of thinking with analog tape and a certain way of dealing with, you know, musical issues that came up. Whereas like nowadays, oh, I make another track. Oh, I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to think about, well, what if I do it this way? I'll just do it. And if I don't like it, I can undo it, or, you know. So there was stuff that was more thought out that isn't as thought out these days, you know.
What do you think it's going to take to bring back that kind of mindfulness into the music industry?
Well, we got to go back to what the music industry was, which is music. You know, that's about it. There's no shortcuts to that. When you have an artist, whoever they are, if they're more concerned about their fashion line or what movie they're going to be in next versus like what music they're doing, well, you know, I get why they do that. There's more money in those other things, but you know, there's something with music that people really dig. You know, Frank Zappa had a really good thing on this where he talks about in the 1960s, you know, record labels were run by basically fat guys wearing suits and chomping on cigars, you know, and the first image that comes to everybody's mind is the fact that, well, those guys, you know, they're a detriment to the music business because they don't know music. When in actuality, it was quite the opposite. It was those guys chomping on cigars who could look at an album and go, I don't know what it is. I don't get it, but put it out, see what happens. And they put out these amazing albums of random stuff. And some of it actually happened to do really well. And when that would happen, they'd be like, well, now what? Well, we got to do more of that because we got shareholders. We got to, you know, we got a bottom line as a label to stay in business, you know, and business, you know, we got to make money and so forth. So how do we figure that out? Well, they didn't know. So their solution to the problem was to hire young people who think they know. And it's the young people they hired in that they put into A&R positions, you know, that are far detrimental to the business than the guys chomping on cigars were, you know, because it's the young guys in the A&R positions who sit there and think, well, we can't take a chance on this because I know what the kids want and it's not this. And it's like, well, you don't know as much as anybody else does. You know, it goes back to that question of what's a hit? Go write a hit song. How do you write a hit song? You know, there's certain things you can cover. There's certain ways to do certain stuff from a technical standpoint, but that doesn't guarantee it's going to be a hit. You know, nobody knows this stuff. That's the beauty of it. They all think they know, and they're going to sit there and look at every chart listening poll, etc., as to what's hot, what's not. They read Billboard every week. And when they see something hot in Billboard, oh, we got to get something like that, but there's no guarantee for any of that stuff. The only thing you can do is do the best work that you can as an artist and hope people like it, and that circles back to everything with being in the right environment to give you the creative abilities, and the technical abilities to pursue whatever creative nuance you wanted. A lot of the old records are still outselling new artists right now. And to me, that's kind of sad, as much as I love some of those old records. But the fact that they're outperforming new artists, what is that saying about new artists? What are we doing differently? I like the Beatles as much as the next guy, but I don't want to hear them all the time, or any other artist from the 60s and 70s. But yet they're outperforming, all these new artists right now. What's changed?
They're talking about different stuff now. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's just totally different content that's just not resonating with anybody other than the particular niche that you know what I'm saying? It's like these people get into this particular little thing and then they just all say, yeah, we like that. But then what about everybody else? Whereas before the songs were basically universal.
Well, yeah, when we had Billy Vera in for the Vinyl Shelf show, I sent the whole after post to Ma'at to check out. And there's a part where Billy's talking about, when I started songwriting, it was basically write a song that people will like 20 years from now and still like 20 years from now, and that's kind of like the whole key to it all. Is you want to think about longevity, not just short-term gains. And unfortunately there's a lot of artists and labels who are interested in the short term, not the long term.
Yeah, but I think that also speaks to like what you're actually trying to do. Like previously they were trying to make something that's, as you say, going to stand the test of time.
Right
now they're trying to make something that, oh, hey, this particular thing is doing numbers right now. Let's do something exactly like it so we can get on that bandwagon.
Yeah, of course. And by the time they finish with it, the bandwagon's over,
It's garbage.
It's like, I want to be on TikTok for 5 minutes.
Right.
That ties into everything else we've been talking about. Is we live in a society where it's all just instantaneous and I want instant gratification, and that trickles down into everything else we're doing musically, technology wise. 25 years ago, if you would have told me I need to have a cell phone and that I can play, 1,000 songs out of my cell phone.
You just said, nah.
I'm like, no, I'm good, man. You need me, call me on my landline. And if I'm not there, well, too bad. I'm off in the studio.
So Joe, finally, you answered Natasha's question. There will be no going back or future of the old stuff.
Yeah, we might be able to. It's all up to us. I think we can get back to where music is a marketable and profitable thing again. We just have to want to go back to doing it, and we have to run a business model that allows us to do that. Which I can't say the old business model was the best thing in the world, but there were things about it that actually worked out really well, to some degree. You look at certain artists, when their songs were on the radio, they were getting 6 cents a radio spin to put to publishing, which 6 cents doesn't sound like much, but it's a hell of a lot better than 0.0018% of a cent, or a shilling, whatever, because it got streamed on YouTube or something. So I think there's ways to go back to that. I'm not trying to be all pessimistic that we'll never get back there. It's just that we have to want to get back there. And that's the tough part, because a lot of that stuff is all subjective. What is good music? What artists will people like and not like? That's all subjective to people. It always was, but we as an industry were more willing to take chances on people versus nowadays where they're just looking for, well, we don't think it'll be hit. You're done. Try it. You don't even get the try again thing. Whereas like with a lot of albums in the 90s and early 2000s and so forth, oh, you didn't have a hit this time. We'll try one more album with you and see what happens. No Doubt's really, really well known for that, where their first album didn't do well at all, but their second album was Tragic Kingdom, and at the time, Interscope was like right on the verge of wanting to we're done with you. We're going to drop you. And could you imagine what would have happened if that went down? Nobody would know who Gwen Stefani is other than the local Southern California scene, because they were like a local band out of Anaheim, but the label stuck through, to their credit, and Tragic Kingdom came out. And that was like a huge, like, boom, it blew up, So it can happen. We just need to go back to that. And unfortunately, it takes a lot of changes in the mindset, and changes in attitudes towards what we're doing and how we're doing it.
So what do you think about vinyl in music business?
Vinyl's really nice, not because it sounds better, but because it's an experience. And if you can give people that experience and they're willing to pay for that experience, it's probably the best thing for an artist, because the royalty rates that they get for selling a vinyl is, again, a lot more than a download or a stream off the internet, and for the consumer, they have that experience. One of the things with vinyl, which we had vinyl when I was growing up, you'd have the big, large album sleeve with the big, large print on it that you could read. You'd open up the jacket and you'd see all the photos and all of these things. And it was a ritual, and it was an experience that you gave people. It wasn't instantaneous. I had to put the record on the machine. I had to make sure the machine was clean. I had to make sure the record was clean so it would sound the best, brush the record off so there's no dust in the grooves, that kind of stuff. There was a, it wasn't just instantaneous. So yeah, I think vinyl's a great thing if you're into vinyl, and there's people who are. There's collectors who spend a lot of money to buy certain vinyl albums from certain pressings of certain artists because, they're worth a lot of money, so I think it's a great idea. I really do. See what it does in the long run. It's not Atmos compatible, but hey, vinyl. But again,
even today, Joe, with this MP3 stuff, if I was to give my kid a big poster, of an artist, that experience, they love it.
Yeah, of course.
But when I check out an MP3, when I really look at it, there's very little value. I mean, I like the song, but there's nothing connecting to it. And like, say if I take my daughter, and say if I take my daughter and give her a CD, not even vinyl, a CD with a poster that comes out, something she can actually hold, like they connect with it more. And I found out, even now, I still do. I'm old school, but I'm not that old. I'm not dedicated to old school. I'm actually getting an experience when I grab stuff like that vinyl that he's talking about, that Bill is showing up there. So even Natasy has a vinyl. But as far as bringing it back, once somebody's making money, once there's money being made from the old ways, like, if money talks. So if we get away, if an artist or several artists start making money, or say, here's how I look at it. If every generation is rebelling, well, they're going to rebel against this sooner or later. And somebody will come out with some stuff done with these proven ways that bring something that's not here, and the money will come and people will change.
Well, the press plants that are making vinyl will tell you they have, backlog of work, so there's a lot of artists who are exploring that route,
but even the methods, the methods, because, all right, to speak to what you were saying, Joe, I was on Pro Tools and create a track instantly, right? And we got to where we switched and went to a Zoom 24. which only has 24 tracks. And that
Yep.
automatically made me, the same person, do different. Then went from that to 16 track, a little 16 track cassette tape. And we were working on songwriting is what it was. And immediately, what happened was, when you say less is more, what comes into play is our creativity went more with less tracks.
Yeah.
And that's where that less is more thing came in. And then we went down to 8 track, and we really got involved. Like when, I don't know if it was you, whoever it was telling us, quit looking at the knobs as we turn, just like look away or close our eyes. And
Right.
so you're using less as far as your eyes, but your brain kicks in. It's that
Yeah.
type of stuff that starts coming into play when you start doing music, where you as a human start being more involved.
Oh, totally. I don't think I was one who said less is more. Because I'm not of that kind of mindset. I'm more of along the lines of having a finite number of tracks causes you to focus more and causes you to plan out more. In my early days, I knew guys like Al Cooper. Now, Al Cooper's famous for a lot of things. He produced Sweet Home Alabama, by Leonard Skinner, and did a lot of Leonard Skinner records. He founded Blood, Sweat, and Tears. He played B3 on Bob Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone. And he used to say things like, when the first 8-track machines were commercially available, which meant it wasn't just Tom Dowd who had one and Les Paul who had one, when they were like in commercial studios, he's like, we're wondering what to do with 4 extra tracks. And that's because whatever they were working on, they had become used to, I can fit this in 4 because I've planned this out with whatever I'm producing, whatever the music is, I can fit this in 4. And then it expands to, I can fit this in 8. So it's not a matter of being less is more. It's a matter of being prepared and knowing what you're getting into, what you're going to need to do in order to get a project done in a manner that does what it's supposed to do. Music's all about emotions and feelings. And if you can get that done in 4 tracks, you can get that done in 4 tracks. It's not about, oh, I need 24, I need 48. It's a matter of whatever you're trying to convey as an artist. And on the production side, being able to plan ahead to make that happen. So yeah, you will find that having less tracks causes you to do certain things differently. When you have 8 tracks to deal with, how many are taking up your drums? Maybe 2 for stereo. And it's like, okay, that leaves me down to 6. What am I fitting in 6? I have my drums in stereo, and you'll find that when you do things like that, the mix is the mix. My drums in stereo are my drums in stereo. I can't fix that later, so I kind of have to roll with it. So, it's not so much that less is more. It's just that you're thinking about it and you're planning out, well, we need to do this and they want to do this. How can we make this all work to where it gives us the best of everything? That's all it is. It's not so much a less is more mentality. Plan ahead, know your stuff, know your music. I had someone ask me the other day, not to sidetrack this, but I had someone ask me the other day, and they didn't ask me specifically, but they were like, how do I get radio ready mixes? And it's like, well, you mix. Radio ready just means everybody likes it, and that's the one they've decided to put out on the radio. And the only way to really get there is to practice your craft and know the song and know the tools you're using, that way you can apply them in a manner that serves the music. That's what we're doing. That's what it's about. You want to serve the music, you want to serve the artist,
Are you saying that my radio ready song and your radio ready song might absolutely, positively not sound anything alike sonically?
Yeah, probably. But I'm also saying, they're both radio ready because it could be whatever people like, and you never know how those winds blow, as they say.
Now, do you guys ever have people Just do the fly on the wall thing?
Yeah, we've had people do the fly on the wall thing.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
Oh, fly on the wall means they come and hang out and listen, and they come and watch and observe.
Okay.
In fact, here's another little history lesson with, with Al Cooper. Originally, he was supposed to be a fly on the wall for the Bob Dylan Like a Rolling Stone session. Originally, he was invited by a friend of his who was producing. Hey, I'm working with Dylan today. Come on down. And at some point between leaving his place to go to the studio and getting to the studio, he decided he wanted to play on it because he's a huge Dylan fan. And he tells such a good story on it. But, it was basically, he was supposed to be a fly on the wall and just observe, listen, and hang out. But he worked his way up to the organ and Dylan liked it. And that was that, But yeah, we do have people who come in and be a fly on the wall. I encourage it because it's like, yeah, it's nice to have people around, who are just listening and digging what you're doing. Hopefully they're digging what you're enjoying, what you're doing, plus it's always good to ask them questions, because you're focused on certain things and you might want to go, hey, wait a minute, what do you think about this? And it's just like asking someone who hasn't heard it before. Yeah, come on down. We enjoy having people who observe and hang out,
Okay, Natty, hopefully fly on the wall. But before you do, Joe,
Yes.
etiquette. The fly on the wall's etiquette. What a fly on the wall is supposed to do what and not do what?
Okay, well, for starters, depends on the artist, because some artists don't want the fly on the wall. Some artists need the fly on the wall. Some artists won't perform unless there's like a whole crowd of people there, because that's how they get into it. Which, again, getting back to everything about serving the music and serving the artist, if that's what they need, to do their best, to be on point with whatever art they're doing, yeah, be a fly on the wall. So if there's any etiquette to that, it's you show up and keep your mouth shut unless they ask you something, which they probably won't. And you just watch and learn what they're doing. Even when you're an assistant engineer or work in a session and you're not the lead engineer, your job is to be the fly on the wall where you're just watching everybody work, and they'll call you when they need you. You don't ask questions until you find a moment where it's like, okay, there's a pause. I can ask them about this, or I can double check we've done that kind of stuff. But yeah, you basically show up and be quiet and you watch. Al Schmidt apparently used to do a lot of fly on the wall stuff with people, and they got there like, oh, I'm hanging out with Al Schmidt today and we're in the studio. And it's just like, yeah, Al doesn't need your opinion. So you just watch Al work and you go, I'll put this on the bass today. I think I'll try that next time I'm in the studio, kind of thing,
So that's not such a nice, heartwarming story, Al Schmidt in the studio and having those flies on the wall. But I experienced him in South France at Mix with the Masters.
Oh, lovely.
And there he was totally different, because he encouraged you to ask, to look at his fingers and ask every question. Why did you do this? And why did you? And that was so fantastic. Yeah. But I can imagine when you are in a studio at Capitol and he is working, that he might not have liked people still asking nasty questions.
Well, there's a time and place.
Yeah.
And obviously when he's doing a vocal ride, hey man, why did you I'm sure there's a time and place where that would have been appropriate. And yeah, Al was very we miss Al, rest in peace. He was very gracious and heartwarming. I was fortunate enough that I'd see Al often, because in Los Angeles we all get together on Wednesdays and have lunch. Yeah, because we have the time to do so. So a lot of us would get together, and when Al wasn't working, he'd be there on Wednesdays having lunch with the rest of us, and we were fortunate enough to be in Al's good graces and have Al like sitting next to us having Mexican food, and he was such a great guy. Yeah. And I can't say enough good things about him, and rest in peace, Al. He was a sweetheart. He really was. And yeah, it does not surprise me when you were at Mix with the Masters. He's like, ask me any question you want.
Yeah, it
You know,
was.
it's like, what's your favorite cigar? You know?
Yeah, that was another question. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah, of course.
yeah. Yes, sir.
Joe, how did you learn to fix gear, mod and fix gear?
Well, there's a few different stories with that. The first one being, if I broke something, I didn't want anyone to know I broke it. And in my early days, well, I still experiment a lot, but there was a lot of experimentation about what you can do and what you can't do, and how does this sound like? Because like when I started, you'd be at a studio, you know, and you'd be working staff at a studio, and when sessions weren't happening, everybody was fighting to be in the studios when there wasn't paid clients in there. Because what's the best way to learn a room is to be in there doing things, learn the patch bay, be in there patching things. So part of it was, yeah, I didn't want anybody to know that I broke something. And the other part is I was handy with a soldering iron. So I could solder cables, I could desolder components and replace new components. So that's kind of where it all started. And I kind of just learned from there, you know. I knew how to fix tube amplifiers, like guitar amps, you know, the basic stuff, retube it, replace capacitors. And that took up most of the problems would go away at that point, you know. And the more you do it, you get better at diagnosing things and better at understanding what parts do and so forth. So a lot of it was just, I had to. There was no other choice. It was another segue into the business. Aside from, yeah, I can turn a knob and make it sound good, because there's a lot of people who can turn knobs and make it sound good, you know. And depending where they are and their availability, they're probably getting hired before you, especially when you start off. That's just how it works, you know. So there's other options, you know, to keeping a roof over your head and, again, money in the bank. You know, so it's like, yeah, I can fix that, sure. Sometimes it was like, I'll figure it out as I go along, you know. But a lot of it was that, and you just get to a point where you get really good at troubleshooting why it's not working, and you can break the big picture into smaller, like, manageable pictures of things, and finally you get to a point where it's like, okay, I can do this, and we're good, you know. So yeah, that's where I got started with that, and I kind of continued along with that at various studios.
So you absolutely did not go to a formal school.
For electrical engineering,
Yeah.
no. I don't have an EE degree. I did go to school for music and so forth, and learned audio production in school, but that was different than actually fixing gear and tape alignment and all of the fun stuff that we do in studios, you know. Again, back when I started, because tape machines were king, everybody knew how to set up a tape machine. Not that the studio required you to do so, but you knew how to do it in case nobody was available to do it for you on your behalf from the tech staff. Some studios in LA would allow the assistants and so forth to do it because they're in the rooms all the time, you know, different from the techs and so forth. And it was just, you did it because you had to. You did it to learn what you could and couldn't do with the medium. You know, tape has a finite level before it starts to distort, you know, and in order to get the optimum in sonic quality out of your tape machines, you got to know how to set them up. You know, that's some of the stuff that gets lost over the years. The fact that we all have Pro Tools now. I just turn on Pro Tools and make a new track and I'm recording. Most people don't think about, you know, calibrating their converter to, you know, a level of 0 VU equals something in digital, you know, and so forth. They just make a new track and start recording. Whereas like in my days starting off, we had to have the tape machine set up. Otherwise it didn't record right and play back right. You know, one of the things, and this is from guys who I respected and admired, like Jeff Emmerich, would tell you that when you started at studios, you started in the mastering department before you were like a tracking engineer. And this was after when you did your stint as well, like in England, they called them, you know, the tea boys, where their job was to run and go get tea and, you know, go grab stuff for sessions and so forth. But you'd go from being like the runner and the gopher to a mastering engineer way before you were in the tracking rooms. And the reason you did that is because the main format at the time was vinyl, and you had to know how much information of music I can fit on a vinyl before things happen that you don't want, like the needle jumping off the record because there's too much bass, you know, and that kind of stuff. And you kind of work your way backwards in that respect to where by the time you finally sat in the engineering seat as the engineer, you knew what you could fit on the medium, you knew what you couldn't fit on the medium. You know, you knew how to set the medium up so you could get the maximum fidelity out of it, you know? So it was just, yeah, one of those things. We don't have to do a lot of that stuff anymore, you know? So yeah, I got into that when I started. Everybody I knew who was around the same age and in the same business knew how to run a soldering iron, because it was just extra ways to do things, you know?
Very cool. Chris Love said to tell you what's up.
Oh, tell him I said hi.
Will do.
Yeah. He's out in Nashville
Yep.
doing his thing, you know?
So it's coming up. What's new? What's new and exciting? What you looking forward to next?
Ooh, for me?
Yeah.
We're starting tomorrow with the Blue Mountain Tribe. That's what I'm looking forward to, because they're the next clients that are in. Blue Mountain Tribe, they're all Native American. And was a year and a half ago, we cut a single with them. And apparently it did really well. As far as like Native American blues musicians go.
Okay.
You know, they're a blues band. They're a good blues band at that, but you know, blues is a niche market, as you were saying earlier. So they're back in to do a full album. So we'll see how it goes, you know. They want to run tape. Okay, we'll run tape. You know, they want to do all kinds of things. Yeah, no problem. We're set up for that.
Nice.
You know. So yeah, that's like the next big thing that I'm looking forward to will be that, because that's the next project that's coming in here.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Again, goes back to money in the pocket.
Sir, yes, sir.
So I have this year, the next month, I won't have any paid projects. So I'm doing friends and family stuff, but I'm happy that I will go to Brazil at the end of April and visit a friend who has a very well-known studio.
Oh, lovely.
Near Rio. It's called Rosinante, and they also have a label and producing, and they set up a vinyl factory last summer.
Wow.
They are producing South American artists.
Nice.
And make I don't know the right word in English, but a number of 800 to 1,000 vinyls from each production.
No, lovely.
And Paper told me last week that from the last productions, they were sold within 1 week. So
that's beautiful.
There's a market. So now it's more South American music. And when I will be there, and some of my friends will join us, so we make a small reunion. People who met 2 years ago with Al Schmidt in the Fabrik, and 4 or 5 of us will meet again at Paper's studio, and we will produce our record and mix South American bossa nova band.
Oh, beautiful, man! That'll be great.
That will be really fun. So I'm not thinking about paid production. I'm sorry, guys. You see, I'm a bit older. I will get 65 next week. So
right. Happy birthday!
Audio business is a lot of fun, and professional fun for me. So, but that is what I'm looking for. Being for a week or 10 days in a real studio with a big Neve console, and
lovely.
Again, that's the plan.
When you go, have a caipirinha.
Yeah, at least
At
not
least
only
one.
one.
For those that don't know, caipirinha is a Brazilian. It's like a Brazilian margarita or
Yeah,
mojito, kind of,
yeah.
you know.
But it's
They're good.
it's with alcohol.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that are my plans. No further plans. Maybe I'll get to New York this year also.
Oh, lovely. We should all
But
go to New York.
but I know I don't know any music guys, audio
Yo, Bill.
professionals in New York.
Yeah,
I don't know
nobody's in
All
New
anyone.
crash
York.
on Bill's floor
Yeah.
with all of us at the same time on Bill's floor with sleeping bags.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
Right on, man.
All right, Natty, hit him.
So I have
Uh-oh.
a question. It might be a little controversial, but I was wondering what you think about the Grammys now with, you know, I've heard about a lot of generated views and bots.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion on the Grammys? Do you think that's affected the Grammys? Have you ever watched the Grammys and actually been into that, or?
Yeah, no, totally. The Grammys are industry, so you kind of have to be. There's a lot of parts to that question. The first one, when you talked about bots and buying likes and so forth, buying likes and using bots to generate likes, I don't know how much of that is actually affecting things, mainly because hitting a like button on a video doesn't mean they watch the video and you get a streaming, count for it, and you get whatever percentage of a penny you get for that stream. Buying likes can definitely get people to check out something, because there's always people who are trying to be like, that whole fear of missing out kind of thing. Some of it can be in a bad way, like what happened with Rebecca Black, where it became viral, for all the wrong reasons. But at the end of the day, for her, there was a huge payday. So I don't know what to say with that, other than, yeah, all of that data can be manipulated. When the old days where it was like on a physical medium, you could manipulate it too, to a degree, based on how they count record sales. It used to be how many records were shipped, now how many were sold. When they came out with SoundScan, it was like, well, now we can track how many were actually sold, as opposed to we shipped 3,000 units to Tower Records. As far as the Grammys and any controversy, there's always going to be. There's always going to be a list of artists that those in the industry kind of go, well, why'd they pick that artist, or why is this person doing this, that, and the other? That's always going to be there. The people who vote on the Grammys, there's a whole lot of them. So any artist who's up there, yeah, they went through the ringer, and they deserve to be there. Even when they had the whole Milli Vanilli, controversy, where, yeah, okay, it happens. Mistakes happen, but yeah, for the most part, whatever the Grammys want to do, it's their thing, and that's great. Where I run into any issues with all that stuff is when they start saying we need to have certain types of whatever based on anything else other than the art, and they're doing that across the board. And it should always be about the art, whether it's film, whether it's television. It shouldn't be less about, well, we need to have so many people of this gender or so many people of this kind of thing. It should be about the art. And there's enough people in the industry who can recognize what the art is and what they feel the art should be, and what they feel the art should be as whatever, say best vocalist female, best vocalist male, So yeah, there's always going to be controversy. That's just the nature of the business, because there's always going to be opinionated people who sit there and go, oh, well, this person shouldn't have won, or this band shouldn't have won. Look at Metallica, their first Grammy nomination, they lost to Jethro Tull. And those are two completely different bands. Metallica is a metal band. Jethro Tull is Jethro Tull.
Why were they in the same category at all?
But they were in the category for best metal album,
Oh, Jethro Tull is metal. Okay.
Well, there you go. You see, I wouldn't think so, but apparently enough people in the Grammy voting committee thought so.
Yeah.
So it's sorry, but it happens.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch the goalposts move. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like you said, oh well, are we counting how many records you shipped out? Are we counting how many records you shipped out that were actually sold and not returned to the company?
Oh yeah, of
Are
course.
you counting how many streams you got on a service? Are we counting how many videos? Because see, part of the problem with the whole YouTube thing, like for me, the whole thing fell off when they started counting YouTube views. Because if your song is garbage, then people are going to go to your song to diss it, which looks like a view. It's not a fan view. It's somebody going to read the comments and make jokes about you. But the better, like you said with, Rebecca Black or whoever, the better that is, it makes you look more popular and it makes your record look like people actually wanted to listen to it. Nobody listened to your record. The record was playing while they were typing something negative about you.
Oh yeah. Well, the world loves a train wreck.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like that wasn't available previously. Like,
oh yeah, well,
tuning in just to be negative wasn't you wouldn't buy the Jethro Tull album, which isn't metal,
right, of course,
just to be negative about it. Throw it off a roof or.
Well, funny you say that. And since Spotify's in the news lately, I had someone talking to me about. There was a band, I think they're called Wolfpack or something like that.
Yeah, Wolfpack.
And they were all upset that they got kicked off of Spotify for an album they did, and that album got kicked off of Spotify, and they were trying to bring up the whole Spotify censoring and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care. But what was interesting with the album that they brought up as an example was the band recorded an album of silence.
Oh, that trick, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they uploaded it to Spotify, and before Spotify was doing their, round and round and round of we're going to check your album out before we put it on our service.
Yeah,
they got through, so their fans, and God bless their fans for them, streamed it enough times in a month that they were going to get paid 20 grand. And I can see why Spotify was like, hey, you know what? No.
Now you're out of here.
Because essentially that's theft. I get it. Well, so yeah, it's very.
It is, but it isn't, because the way Spotify set themselves up, they created a system where the person gets paid if somebody clicks on what they put on Spotify. So that's why it's not, because even though it was silence, they had enough fans to keep clicking on it, right? But I agree with you in principle.
Yeah, I understand. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I can see why Spotify acted the way they did.
Me too.
Because it's like, oh, we're streaming music. We're not streaming silence.
Silence.
So I mean, I get both sides of the argument, but it's just like at the end of the day, it's like, so you're right. It is. It's easy to manipulate that stuff.
So like my point is that no, I don't think people should get paid for putting 10 tracks of silence. I don't think they should get paid for that. But that's not different from somebody putting up 10 tracks of actual music, and the only reason people clicked on it was because they knew Spotify was going to pay them.
Yeah.
Like they didn't actually listen to it. They just clicked on them and ran them so that Spotify would pay them. It's just they were so blatant to say, look, we're not going to put any music at all, and we're still going to get paid. That's why Spotify was like, yeah, we got to get some get back.
Well, nowadays, Spotify gets over 1 million submissions a day, something ridiculous like that they have to weed through, and they have like tiers of people whose job it is to check out new submissions before they put it on there.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
And there's pros and cons to it all. I don't mind that there's gatekeepers there, because let's face it, there should be some sort of redeeming quality, but at the same time, it's like, well, who decides what that quality is?
Right.
So that's where it, becomes a whole issue. I'm a big proponent of going back to actual physical formats, whether it be vinyl, whether it be whatever it is, because, you can track a physical format.
Sure. Yeah.
You can track it at the store. You can, as problematic as CDs can be, we knew what we were getting with a CD. It would sell for this much. The artist would get this much.
Yeah.
Everything was pretty much straightforward. And as much as people complained about it, it was, I hate to say guaranteed, but we knew this was going to be this much. This was going to be this much. It costs this much, so it's a strange world,
Yeah. One of my favorite / unfavorite parts of the whole thing was you wanted the record, the actual, vinyl or, at some point CD or whatever. You wanted the record. You got on the subway. You went to Tower Records.
Yeah.
And you hoped and you prayed that it was there. Because if people beat you to it, you didn't get it.
Well, again, the whole experience, man, everything's about an experience. And, the fact that it would build up to that gratification that you had money in hand, they had it at the store.
Yes.
Yes.
You bought it, you supported your favorite band, you got to play it and take it home. And if you recorded to cassette or whatever you did, there was a whole lot of extra experience to it other than, I clicked the button and I heard the song and I downloaded it digitally.
Yeah, of course. And it cost me 99 cents.
Right.
Just like a 45 cost back, when there were 45s, 99 cents.
That goes back to what you were talking about with the guys with cigars, because that was the whole idea of the album. The whole idea of the album was there are only 3 good songs out of 10.
Yeah.
And people are going to pay you for a 10-song album based on 3 songs.
Of course. And then the other thing with that is, of those 10 songs, the 3 that weren't picked, there might be 1 or 2 more.
Yes.
That people really,
and
got into.
Pick it up again, and people
or that people thought
again.
Was,
Yep.
And no, I hate to be like nobody knows, but the reality is nobody knows. If you look at like books, for example, the biggest selling book of all time is the Bible. What's the Bible? It resonates with people. Musically, we need to go back to doing that, because it's like they'll go back to buying music again. Good songs have always sold, whatever you think good songs are. I hate to be like there's certain formulas to that, but let's face it, at one point in time when songs came out, there was like a dance that went with them, and there would be a lot of, especially young teenagers, who wanted to learn the latest in dance moves. So they'd buy these songs so they could learn the latest in dance moves, and it gave them something to look forward to as well. It's all about the experience, like everything we've talked about is about the experience and what the experience should be, so getting back to that, and resonating with people musically, giving them the experience, whatever the experience is,
I have a question. Do you guys think that NFTs would help? They could act as like the new form of CD?
I think NFTs are a joke, and anyone who invests in NFTs is wasting their money and time. I really do. Especially because as much as they tell you NFTs are, crypto, blockchain, blah, 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 all those buzzwords, you can still like make copies of NFTs, even if you don't have them. Anything in the, one of the worst things, I hate to say the worst things we did, but one of the worst things we did as an industry is allow it to where we could have files of music on a computer, because it's very easy to copy files of music on a computer. Case in point, not too long ago, but when they were doing Rock Band and all the Rock Band games, look at all the like different actual artists' material that ended up on the internet. And it probably wasn't like the full multi-tracks or any of that stuff. It was probably stems of things. But look at all that stuff that like leaked out into the public, because, well, it's a digital file, and someone over at wherever they were working on this stuff is like, I can just copy this like this. And, it ended up on the internet. I talked with Jeff Emmerich. This was like, back in 2006 when we were at AES, and he did a lecture on the 40th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper's. And at the same time, they were doing Rock Band, or what is it, Guitar Hero, one of those. And there was a whole like bunch of Beatles multi-tracks that were released onto the internet. And I asked Jeff about that, and Jeff was like, they're shit, aren't they? Those aren't the real tapes, you know. Yeah, they're noisy, they're this or that. But he goes, someone fucked up. Someone allowed that stuff to get out into the ether, you know. And there was a period, a long period, where that stuff was never released anywhere, because the only way to get it out of the studio was you had to copy the tape onto another tape. But being, you know, a digital file, I just drag it over to this hard drive here. And now I have it at my house. And now I'm going to impress, you know, my friends or whatever with, oh, look what I got, you know. We're in a very strange industry where you can say you can do whatever you want. You know, you can say I'm this, I'm that, whether you are or you're not. So NFTs are along the same line. You know, I can invest money in an NFT that anybody else can copy, even though they say they're protected. They're not. You know, it's a computer file. No computer file is safe unless you have it on a hard drive that's not connected to anything. Then it's safe. It's sitting on that hard drive. But then you run into the other issue of, well, I haven't run that hard drive in a while. Will it?
Is it going to start? Yeah. Is it going to turn on? Am I going to get my data off of it?
You know, I will say this is tape machines, and tape was big and bulky and cumbersome. If I had it recorded on tape, the probability of going back to that tape in 5 years, 10 years, and still having the material on there was a 99.99% chance, as long as I stored it in a proper environment. You know, once it was on that tape, it's on that tape. I can't say the same for a hard drive. I can't say the same about NFTs, you know. And if you want to buy a monkey with a banana, that's your business. Go waste your money.
Was that the end of your question, Natasi, or?
I think so. No, I was reading something in the chat for a second.
Yeah, we're clowning in the chat.
Well, sorry, it just like popped up on me, but yeah, I'm sorry. It was like bling. I'm like, oh, shit. It's all caps too, so you know, it must be important.
That's his fault. That's Mr. All Caps over there. Like I was just,
yeah.
I'm just socializing with him in the way he's used to. That's.
So yeah, I hope that answered your question, Natasi.
No, that was a great answer. I haven't heard it from that perspective, and it gave me a new perspective. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I want to have a copy of this chat conversation.
I think Zoom automatically saves it, so I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
You guys are talking about Milli Vanilli. I partly never got that the Grammy got taken away because the guys who actually sang it did such a good job. They should have got the Grammy. So why didn't they get the Grammy?
Because the Grammy was given to Robin Fab.
And so take it back and give it to the right guys.
And you know, the producer was a well-known German guy.
Yes.
Frank Farian.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the guys who actually sang it never got the Grammy?
Correct. No. That was the whole controversy, is, for starters, and this is what I was told. We all saw the video. Well, maybe you didn't, but we all saw the clip where they were performing and they had an audio issue, is the polite way to say it. I'm told what they were doing is they had a synclavier problem, and the synclavier had a hiccup, and that's what sparked all that stuff off. Once it happened, it was like, oh, you see, the big controversy with all that is nobody knew they didn't sing on the record. And they build that off to everybody as, this is Robin Fab, they're Milli Vanilli, this is their album. And that's where it kind of became the whole deal with the Grammys, because the Grammys is supposed to be a legitimate organization that recognizes and honors those in the arts for music. And 99.9% of the time, there usually isn't an issue with any Grammy that comes out. You know, not to say there hasn't been any, there has been, but you know, at the end of the day, it was these two guys are this artist. And it was discovered that they weren't. And that was a huge problem. You know, and that's why they had to give their Grammys back, because it wasn't given to the people who sang on the record. It was literally given to Rob and Fab, the two guys. You know, and that's where it became an issue, and the Grammys had their issues with it, and rightfully so. You know, but I don't know. You know,
My memory is the guys who sang it did not fit whatever aesthetic, right?
yeah, and that's fairly common too. You know,
Right.
and I
And
hate to say the
so-
industry's like that, but you know,
Oh, it has a thorough history of that. And that's why I was like, why not just give it to those dudes? But okay.
because technically they didn't earn them. Rob and Fab earned them.
No,
You know, I can't defend the Grammy decision. I just know that that's what happened. You know.
Yeah, that is an interesting question when you think about what is the art of the song and what is the art of the presentation of the song. Because without the presentation of the song, it wouldn't have been as popular.
Right.
So it's kind of, they did the acting part, they did the singing part. When you take away the acting part, do you still reward the singing part?
Well, that's a really good question, because if we didn't see the acting part, if they weren't on MTV,
I've never heard
you know.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that saying? Music was better when it was made by ugly people. You know, there's a really good documentary, speaking of like the art and the presentation, called Before the Music Dies.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it came out in 2007. That's really worth watching. And the reason you want to watch it is because the guy who did the documentary, the story is he had a brother who was a musician, and his brother got sick and his brother passed away. And in his brother's last few days, his brother expressed, you know, just unhappiness and, you know, totally disillusioned by the entire industry of music. And they got to talking about why. And when his brother passed away, he went to go find some answers on all of this stuff, you know, and they talk about all of these things about, you know, there's a part in there where they're like, would Stevie Wonder be signed today as an artist? And the answer is no, because he's blind. And that's the reality. In the 60s and 70s, you could make that presentation as little Stevie Wonder, the Wonder Kid. But nowadays, it'd be really hard to sell, no matter how good the music is.
That's
You know,
really interesting.
yeah. So it's a really good documentary, and they talk about a lot of these things. And there's a lot of good cameos in there from a lot of great musicians like Branford Marsalis, you know, Los Lobos, and on and on and on, talking about the art that is music and how the industry's changed to where it's now about the art of presentation of the art that is music, and whether the dangers of that, whether the you know, benefits to that. You know, MTV changed a lot of things for a lot of people because it now gave a face to the music. And some of these people didn't need a face to the music. They just needed the music,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, it's a good one. That's worth watching. You can catch it free, I think, on Hulu and a few other places, you know, for those who stream like content. And that's the other thing. We've now gone to this, speaking of presentation, it's now content. It's no longer, oh, I can watch this movie, I can watch content. Or I no longer can listen to this album, I listen to content. And all we've really done is marginalized everything we do into one word. It's content. And content's not very appealing to anybody. Oh,
No.
I make content. You know, I got up this morning, went to the restroom, and made content. You know?
Yeah, I mean, another thing about it is that, so with vinyl, right, you
Yep.
put the needle down and it stays down.
Hopefully.
So, yeah, unless you messed up the record and it bounces off. But what I'm saying is, you were not there. Like you're talking about, okay, it's 99 cents, it's a single, it's this, that, and the third. You can go on the screen, you press it, whatever. You put the needle down, it stays down. There are 5 songs on this side of the album. Right. You are most likely going to hear all 5 songs because you're not going to keep getting up and going to a record player and changing it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so in order to make an album, you're making a work of art that's supposed to work together.
Oh yeah. And you know, parts of that you should be looking at the album jacket and reading all the liner notes, you know. One of the biggest things that we've been fighting for in the last several years is providing credits on digital files.
Yeah, because there aren't any.
Yeah. And there should be. People should know what studios, what engineers, you know.
Yep.
As much as I'm, you know, not a complete fan of credits and so forth, they should know these things. I can tell you in my vinyl collection, there's a lot of certain albums, and you start looking at the engineers and they're all, it's like, oh, it's
same one.
You did all these things.
Yeah.
I dig that. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, they were all done out of Memphis, or they were all done out of, you know.
Yeah. It's like I have Freestyle Records, which is a New York style of, you know, music, but things I've been listening to since I was a kid. And then I look on the album that I've had for ages, and then it says Chris Lord Alge.
Oh yeah.
You know, what? Like, he's known for rock.
Yeah.
What? This freestyle record, this is he mixed this. His name is on the vinyl that I have.
Yeah. Nice.
You know? So it's I think credits are important for the history of what people have done.
Yeah.
I don't know that credits give you any particular cachet over anybody else, but it at least it's a trail of breadcrumbs saying they did this song you like, they did this song you like, they did the third song you like, you probably want to hire them.
Oh yeah, well there's definitely that, but there's also, let's face it, there was a period where people actually read what studios did what.
Yeah, because you were saying they had different sounds to different studios.
You know, well, not only that, it was just like, let's face it, Stax Records out of Memphis. If Stax did this one artist, like Otis Redding, for example, the probability of me listening to other Stax artists, is pretty high.
That's true.
And you'll find a lot of other Stax artists like Rufus Thomas, Booker T and the MGs, you know, and on and on and on. That's just like, yeah, okay, I dig this. You know, and the probability of finding stuff that you dig that are other artists that were done there are pretty high because of the things they were doing.
Andre, any questions?
No.
I know Maat's got a question. He just...
Yeah. Maat always has a question. If you're waiting for him to have a question, you could be here all day.
Hey, Joe. Okay. So gain staging, like, does that still come into play in your world, or better yet, how does that still come into play in your world?
Ooh, technical questions. Great. Gain staging always comes into play. And for me, and where I started, it was about being able to get the maximum of fidelity above the noise floor, but not too loud so it distorted. So if you look at like an old analog VU meter, depending on who the meter was made for, whether it was a broadcast application or music application, you'll see all the way up 0 VU, +1, +2, +3. Anything after 0 VU is in the red. On most meters underneath it, you'll see a percentage scale where it's like 0 to 100%, and 100% was 0 VU. And the idea was supposed to be that you would be loud enough to where you were above the noise of the equipment and above the noise of the tape machine and the tape hiss and so forth, but not loud enough to go over 0, because at that point you were over modulating, which in broadcast would put you out of, you know, the frequencies that your station was at. and you'd get a fine from the FCC. So gain station has always been important because you want to make sure you can find a comfortable level with the equipment you have. Every piece of gear, whether they say so or not, has a certain range that it'll sound best to you, and you want to stay within those specs if you can. And there's times you want to go out of those specs too. Sometimes you want distortions. Sometimes you want that loud big crash in the middle of things to wake everybody up, but ideally you're kind of just watching it to make sure that I don't distort and that I'm loud enough to be above any of the noise that the analog equipment is making. In digital, it's still important because at the end of the day, I don't care what anybody tells you, when you're summing a lot of tracks together with a lot of complex information, even though they tell you like 32 bus floating point and 24-bit, resolutions give you the headroom that we're supposed to have, it still sounds different. I can't prove it per se.
Let me interrupt you for a sec. Andre's on his way out, so.
Andre,
I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks.
See you later, bro.
it's late for you. Thanks for tuning in. You're 6 hours ahead of me, and I'm 3 hours ahead of them. So
See you
appreciate it.
next time.
Andre,
thank you. Bye.
Take
Enjoy
care
the
of
dragon's
Andre.
milk.
All right, man.
But yeah, so I mean, it's still important. And you want to find where the gear sits comfortably to where you're not working it too hard and it gives you the sounds that you want. There are times you want to push it that hard though, and you want to get those sounds too. It's knowing your stuff. Like anything else, know your tools. As I always tell people when it comes to this stuff, like I own a hammer, but I'm not a carpenter, but I know what a mic pre does. And I can hammer with one all day long. So, it's just one of those things. It's important. It still is important.
Well, I asked because a friend of mine named Brian, I went to his house to record, and I was recording up to -8, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Bruh, don't, no." It's like, "Bruh, I'm 8 from 0. There's no biggie."
Yeah.
He had me record down at -12, -18, and had me compare.
Yeah.
And it absolutely was different. It's something about how he had his system set up to where when it read on Pro Tools at -8, the sound was harsh.
Right.
It sounded what I would relate to more analogy down at -12, -18. And I was like, no shit.
Yeah.
I was baking that stuff in and had no idea that I was baking a harsh sound in.
Well, it's totally plausible, absolutely. Depending on what the converters are set at, -18 through -12 would be somewhere around 0 VU on an analog meter. And as much as we've gone to like loofs and so forth, at the end of the day, the analog meter is still important. And what we're doing with the music is still important, So yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that was the case. And a lot of people tend to record stuff too loud, and it's like, where do you go from there? If everything's too loud, where do you go from there? I had, when I was working for Vi, one of the things he did is he had a studio here in Hollywood that he wasn't using and he was renting out to people. And without going into the full story of all of that, I get a phone call one day because the house is being rented by some artists and their engineer calls me going, "Hey man, everything's distorted."
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, okay, like what everything? He was like, "Everything's distorted, man. You got to come out." It's like, okay. So I come out to the studio to go, do my tech stuff. And sure enough, everything was distorted because every volume knob that, or any point in their signal chain that could add gain was all the way to the right, So dude's on the microphone and the meters are going, they're pegged. And I'm listening back in the control room and everything's like all pegged and distorted, and I'm just like, oh, well, there's your problem. Here, let me set this up for you. Here, try this. Oh, that sounds so much better. It's like, yeah, it's no longer distorted. So yeah, all of it's important. And even in digital world, it's important, especially since the digital world is trying to emulate analog so well with all their analog plug-in emulations,
Oh, here we go.
No, there's no, oh, here we go. The reality is, if I'm making a copy of something in a computer, I want it to mimic whatever I'm copying as best as possible. And analog gear has a range where it works and sounds really good without being distorted and gross. You know, so I would assume they factor that into the digital world, and you know, I would like it to behave the same way. So yeah, it's not a oh here we go. It's just a matter of if they copied it right, it'll do that. So I want to make sure that I'm aware of that and can, you know, plan ahead. Always plan ahead.
All right, tell us a good story, Joe, because you got all kinds of stories. Tell us some stuff.
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. What
Without getting in trouble.
Well, there you go. That's the hard part. Is like,
yeah, it is.
You know. Oh, I don't know, man.
I had bought Phil Ramon's book about producing, and there was stuff in there. I'm reading, it's like, what? Huh? Yeah, the behind the scenes stuff is wow. You know,
back in those days, there was a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes to make records that we don't do anymore. Some of us never did, thank God. And some people did to do whatever. I have a big thing with that with artists in general, where you want to be ready to record whenever they want to be ready to record. Because you know, if you're not
miss the moment,
you don't want to miss the moment, and you don't know where they'll be 10 minutes from now. And in those days, there was a lot of different nose candies and other things that artists did to get into the moment. And while I don't, you know, condone or recommend or any of that stuff that you do that, there are artists who do, you know, and that's where a lot of the behind the scenes craziness comes in. One of the engineers I used to work with, unfortunately passed away, was a guy named Jerry Christie. And Jerry's worked with like everybody in Los Angeles at one time or another. And here's a good story. This is a good one. This one's clean too. But he goes, you know, I was working for Chick Corea at the time. Now, Chick Corea is an amazing piano player. If you don't know who he is, go out and buy a record. Your mind will be blown. He's an awesome jazz pianist. And Jerry's like, yeah. So we had finished a day at Mad Hatter, which Mad Hatter was a studio here in LA. It was owned by Chick Corea. And he goes, we had been all day mixing, and I'm getting ready to walk out the door. It's like 10:30 at night, and Chick shows up. Okay. Boss man showed up.
No,
what happened?
Not leaving now.
He goes, well, that's where it gets interesting, because, you know, Chick went into his office and starts playing piano. And like a couple minutes after Chick showed up, John McLaughlin showed up. And if you don't know who John McLaughlin is, he's another amazing jazz musician, does a lot of fusion stuff, plays guitar really well, you know. And apparently him and Chick Corea were sitting in Chick Corea's office having a jam session, just the two of them, where John McLaughlin's on acoustic guitar and Chick Corea's on his piano. And Jerry at that point, you know, and getting back to the whole concept of be ready whenever they are, had this wonderful idea that I'll just walk right past him into the mic locker and pull out a couple mics, grab some cables, you know, and without them even knowing he was still in the building, set up a couple of mics and started doing a live to stereo capture, you know, and that went on for hours. And he sat there with 2 quarter-inch machines. And when one tape would run out, he'd turn on the second machine and then thread up the other machine with tape. And then this went on for hours. And when they were done and they left, he casually walked in and pulled the mics up and moved them away. And then, you know, took a pile of tapes about yay big of quarter-inch, you know, and took them home. Well, Boss Man called him the next day and was like, hey man, did you record any of that stuff we did last night? There might be stuff we can use on the next record. You know, there's some ideas there that were pretty good. You know, so it's one of those things. Being ready, being in the moment. And he could have gone home and just said, fuck it. My clock's over. I'm done.
Right.
You know, so it was stuff like that.
I screwed up recently, like literally.
I'm glad you admit it. That's first step to any problem is recognizing it.
First step to my drug problem is to admit it.
That's right. Put down the foe. Put down the foe. Put down the foe.
Yeah, okay, here we are. That's step one. What are the other 11? No,
I pressed play. I'm a Pro Tools mainly, right, dude? But I was at a studio with Logic. So I'm in there learning. And but I put in the 2-track little beat, pressed play, and started setting up a track, vocal track or whatever. The rapper, while I'm setting it up, just walks in and starts rapping.
Oh no.
And he's like, yeah, that was it. And yeah, I hadn't recorded.
I wasn't recording.
And he was doing it off the head, meaning he made it up on the spot.
Yeah.
It was gone. And the whole session, he was defeated the whole session.
Damn, dude.
Yeah.
That's harsh.
Yeah.
I was like, hey. And the person who brought him in was like, yeah, Mod always records. Don't worry about nothing. He's on. And yeah, I didn't record jack. I missed the whole, we continued on. But yeah, that took the heart out of him.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know that. I mean, you know it now, but I mean, you wouldn't know that. But it's sometimes the inspiration is the first time you hear something.
Yes.
It's like he just walks in, hey, this is the inspiration. I'm gonna say this, that, and the third. You can't say it again because you had that initial rah, and then you're like, did you get it? No, he's like, I can't do it again.
Well, there's a lot to it. The initial excitement. I'm in the studio.
That too, yeah.
I always tell people that for a long time, going to the studio was an event. It wasn't just for making a record. It wasn't just for recording with pick an artist. It was an event. And part to the event was, if you were lucky, you were in the studio, like we'll say Sunset Sound, or we'll say Capitol, where you have multiple studios in the same complex. Because not only was it an event to be at that studio, it was the fact that I may run into somebody else while I'm in, the commissary getting coffee or bagel or something, or the communal kitchen, and there's a lot of history with that. Where, like, for example, when Don got hired to do Nick of Time, which was Bonnie Raitt's, like, I hate to call it a comeback album because she never really went anywhere, but they called it her big, like, comeback, break and that kind of stuff album. He ran into her in the kitchen. I forget what studio it was. And they struck up a conversation. And he thought nothing of it till months later. She's like, hey, I'm working on a new record. I'd love for you to produce it.
Nice.
So there's another good story for you, Ma. That's clean and doesn't get anyone in trouble. But it's that whole, it used to be an event. It used to be a thing. So for an artist, when they hear it for the first time, their excitement, I can't do that again, man. We'll never get that in a million years.
And what you just said about the coffee room or whatever, how do we simulate that type of thing? Like that was part of why I wanted to do Mentors Lab, which we're going to continue doing after this is over or whatever. Right. Speaking of which, we're going to start, Joe's involved in this stuff that we do. We're going to get you were supposed to be the first one. Remember what happened? Do you even remember what happened the first one? I don't want to talk about it online.
It's all good, man.
Anyway, we're going to rent a place, a house type thing where everybody could go. We're not just going to do studios. We're going to do houses, that type of stuff, and just have fun with it. But what now are ways where people are getting that same experience of just happen to be in the same coffee room, meet, that type of thing? Is that still going on? Because the only thing that I know where it's done is events that we throw.
Well, it's harder to do now because of COVID. And that's a whole other thing.
COVID.
That's a whole other thing we haven't touched, because there's a whole lot of different protocols, especially in California, that you got to adhere to COVID stuff and so forth. But how do you do that? Well, any number of things. Like, for example, here in LA, we get together on Wednesdays and have Mexican food, and we all hang out. And you've been to those before.
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, come on now. People know, but to get there, you got to be invited. That's all. And you know, it's one of those things. So how do you do that? You got to make those things happen. And the other thing is there's still studios that, like, Sunset Sound is still open. Go book Sunset Sound, you know, go hang out in the kitchen there and see who comes by. You never know.
See, now that would be smart. That's slick. Rent out Sunset Sound, a room at Sunset Sound specifically for that type of thing where you go do work, but
Well,
you,
I'm not saying
that's a
you
benefit.
should rent it out for that specific thing, but
Well, I'm saying that
you know,
that's a
if it
benefit
happens,
to
it
it. Yeah.
happens. You
Right.
know, a lot of times in the older days, when you'd run into people, be like, "Yo, come check out what I'm working on," and they'd want a break from whatever they were working on, so they walk into your studio and be like, "Yo, that's cool," or "I don't know, man," you know, "Hey, would you like to play on it?" You know, and that's how a lot of those, like, collaborations or, you know, featured artist things kind of showed up, is the fact that they bumped into one another and it was like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a while. What you up to?" I was like, "Oh, I'm working on, you know, this down the hall here. Come check this out." So yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it's a smart thing to, like, book Sunset or the Village or whatever, and hope you run into somebody. It'd be an
Do
expensive way
work
to
in
do
there,
it.
but still.
Well, it'd still be an expensive way to do it, you know, which goes back to budgets and managing your time. If it's worth it for you, yeah, go for it. Sunset's a great place. Village is a great place. You know, Capitol's a great place. All of those studios, you know, even our place is a great place. It's just one of those that having multiple rooms, you can run in, you have a better chance for running into people that, you know, may or may not be able to, you know, come and give you input or whatever. And if you're really lucky, it's somebody like Don was, who has a huge career, you know, and has done all kinds of cool projects with all kinds of cool people. You know, it doesn't always happen, but you never know, you know, and you never know where your next gig is going to be. So it helps to, like, hang out and talk to everybody. And yeah, there's a lot of events around town in places like Nashville, Los Angeles, and New York. In fact, one of my buddies who's an engineer out in Nashville was like, you know, he was out for NAMM in 2019 and he ended up being at the Wednesday lunch. And he's like, "Man, we got to do this in Nashville." It's like, okay. He goes, "Yeah, but nobody in Nashville does this." And he goes, "That's kind of sucks. It'd be cool if we did." You know the people in your industry, and, you know, try and get together and hang out with them once in a while. And it's a good way to learn all kinds of stuff, and it's a good way to meet people, you know. Nothing wrong with going to events that are sponsored by companies. You know, the only hard part is if you don't live in the three main, well, Miami's a fourth one and Austin, Texas is like a fifth one. But if you don't live in LA, it's like, well, Westlake Audio is doing an event, I can't make it, you know.
All right, Natty.
So what was your initial reason for wanting to be in the music industry, for wanting to just be in these studios?
I lost a bet. You know, blackmail.
Yeah.
I could come up with any number of jokes. The reality is, I got my start in music as a musician. I started off as a drummer. I still play drums, just not regularly. But I got my start as a musician, and it got to a point where I was invited into a studio session as a drummer to play drums for forget what the project was, but I did it, and I'm the entire time going, what are they doing over on the other window? They're all looking at me and telling me to do things. Hit it like this, hit it here. That seems kind of cool. You know, they're moving a bunch of knobs and pushing buttons. That seems kind of cool. Oh, and hey, that machine they're using, it looks like my cassette deck, but bigger. What's that all about? You know, and that's kind of where it all started. Is I had that seed planted. You know, when you start talking with these people about what they do in between, you know, because if you don't know this stuff, ask questions. So, you know, talking with these people about, well, what are you doing? It's like, well, my job here today is, you know, well, I'm the producer, and you were hired because my buddy says you're a really good drummer, and the project we're doing, you'll notice, is a cover song. And the reason we're doing this cover song is because we need it for a commercial. And long story short, the people doing the commercial, you know, for whoever it was, God, Nike, whatever, didn't want to pay to use the original sound recording for their commercial product. So what they were doing with us and why I was brought in is because I can play drums, and we're recording like a Rolling Stone song or something, because they don't want to pay the royalties to buy a Rolling Stone song to use for their commercial. That's it. So the producer and the engineer, their entire job was to make it sound like the Rolling Stones for an afternoon so they could get a recording of it. And that was it for me. They did it. It sounded like the original record, enough to where I'm like, you know, it sounds pretty good. It sounds like the original record. That's cool. You know, and I started hanging out at studios in that respect, because it's like, okay, they're doing cool things, you know, and when you started off in that kind of like atmosphere, it's like, oh, we need you to do this and do that. And you did it because you wanted to learn these things, you know, and you wanted to spend time. Like I said with Ma'at before, and I said it earlier today, there was a period where when you worked at the studio, when the studio wasn't booked with paid clients, you were in the room learning everything you could.
Everything you want. Yep.
You know, and the idea, the studios loved it because it made you a better employee, because you knew what the room was doing, where all the bugs were, all the dead bodies were buried, all that stuff, you know, and then you were getting to learn all kinds of cool things that, oh, okay, this doesn't work here, but this works like this, and, you know, that kind of stuff. So there was a whole spirit of adventure and learning new things that a lot of people were involved with. So yeah, that's what was it for me. You know, most people, as Les Paul said it, and I agree with it, most people flip the switch, the light goes on, and they're done. And I've spent the entire life trying to figure out why the light goes on when they flip the switch. You know, so it's that same curiosity that got me into working in studios and to where I'm at now. You know, I've done it for so long, it ain't nothing else other than to go live in the Bahamas and go fish. But you know, that's retirement time.
Okay. What are some struggles that you might have had, and how did you have to adapt, and how did you learn from that when you started out in the music industry?
Well, there's different types of struggles. Part of it, you know, can be something as simple as they don't trust you, you know, because they've never worked with you before. As always, you got to develop that trust with an artist and with the people you're working with, so they know that things are covered when they're covered, that kind of thing. There's other struggles, some of them physical, like for example, if you have an artist who likes to get keyed up, whatever their, you know, choices for that, and you don't, and they want to be up for 3 days, and you're in the studio with them for 3 days.
Oh my God.
How do you keep up with that? How do you adapt? How do you perform, you know, running equipment in a manner that when it's all done, they don't go back and go, you know what, all that stuff was a waste of time, because it all sounds like whatever, you know. So there's that. And then there's just the other typical struggles of you gotta have a life and live a life. And if you're going to dedicate the time that it takes to be as good as you want to be, you got to give up other things, you know?
Yeah, that was something, you know, because one of the things about the music industry, or even the video industry, but specifically music, that they talk about a lot is, you know, how to do billing and how to charge people and this, that, and the third. And one of the most interesting and I think relevant things I heard is that basically what you're doing is you're trading time in your life,
yeah,
to make people's dreams happen.
Right, of course.
You know, so
and
it's
even your own to some degree, you know,
or your own dreams. What I mean is, if somebody's going to hire you, it's not a question of, oh, how much should this cost per hour? It's, I'm trading this person time out of my life that I can't get
right
back.
Of course, yeah, totally. So yeah, those are some of the bigger ones, you know. And there's always going to be other little minor struggles, like, hey, my car won't start, I need to get to the studio, you know, whatever. Daily life struggles like come into play so much in this business, just because of the amount of time we spend in this business, you know, honing in on our craft in any capacity. So yeah, I guess that answers your question. I hope it did.
That actually led me to a follow-up question. How
Cool.
did you end up staying up 3 days with an artist? Because I
I was
still,
about to say, I'd have been like this.
yeah.
You're on your own.
Well, here's the other thing with sessions of that nature. Just because they're in the studio doesn't mean they're always recording.
Mm.
And like there were some artists I worked with where it was common to have a 40-hour day because they would show up to well, it would start off with you were supposed to show up at a certain time because their manager would call you and say, yo, they'll be in the studio at this time.
Mhm.
And you'd watch the clock pass by and they weren't there. And at that point, you're billing anyway, because it's like, well, they were supposed to be here at like whatever, 2:00 in the afternoon. I'm starting, whatever billing, that kind of crap. And then they may show up at like 6 or 7 o'clock at night, if they show up at all. And that's just because of the nature of their schedules. And then if they did show up, they may or may not want to work that evening. And it seems like, especially in nowadays with budgets being budgets what they are, it seems kind of hard to like understand that, oh, they may want to just come out, hang out at the studio at night, for whatever.
Mhm.
Well, some artists are like that. Some artists, used to book rooms because they didn't want their wife to know that they had some side
Yeah.
action,
Yeah.
so it's like, I'm at the studio. And it's like, well, yeah, you're at the studio doing something else other than music, that kind of stuff, so how do you stay up 3 days with an artist like that? You kind of just sneak away when you can and cat nap here, cat nap there. There were a couple times I fell asleep at a patch bay standing up just because, I had to keep up with the artists and that kind of stuff. And then other times, with artists, they're more straightforward. They're in at 9 o'clock. They're out at 9 o'clock at night. You've done a 12-hour day, and that's that. So you kind of just do it because you have to. Doesn't mean you're coherent the entire time. And doesn't mean every waking moment you're recording something, or even more recording something that's usable. But they're there, so you got to be there. That's just nature of, the business, so to speak.
So lots of energy drinks, right? And coffee.
Not for me. I don't drink energy drinks because energy drinks are horrible. I don't like how they taste, and I don't like whatever's in them. And not to say I live a healthy lifestyle, but I have to draw the line somewhere, So I won't drink energy drinks, but I'll have a burger. There you go.
There you go.
There's a split, but I do drink coffee. Yeah, who doesn't? So coffee's okay. It has no calories, especially when you drink it black. So.
I think the burger will wake you up more than energy drink.
Oh, probably. And there was a long period where they didn't have energy drinks, except for like Coca-Cola was considered an energy drink.
What was?
Coca-Cola.
Oh, yeah.
But that's like way a long time ago, so.
Yeah. And
but like, yeah, ultimately,
yeah.
No energy drinks for me, but yeah, coffee and tea and,
Okay. And I, one more question. So
Sure.
I know you're working at Cherokee now.
Uh-huh.
What made you want to work there? Because I know the studio reopened recently. What was it about Cherokee that kind of drew you to it? Like, was it how long?
Like most good gigs, you get referred.
Okay.
So someone referred me to them because they were looking. And I said, yeah, because it's cool. And it's a really good studio with a really good history and really good people that are involved in it. So yeah. There was a period where they had 5 rooms on Fairfax Avenue, and it was a large studio. They slimmed down, they trimmed the fat for various reasons. The most important being they wanted to get back to being in the rooms, and working with the artists directly versus pushing papers around and people, as part of pushing paperwork around. So, I got recommended to them and we did the math and it worked out, So yeah, why wouldn't I want to be here? It's a great place. We do great things. We do cool things. We barbecue a lot. That's a good one. I hate to say it, but that's a good one. Why do it comes back to one of those questions where it's like, why do people pick studios?
Yeah.
You
No, that
know,
studio definitely has a great vibe, so I can see why you would choose to pick it.
no, totally. Yeah, exactly. But, you know, 99% of the time, no one's picking a studio because they have a Neve console or an SSL console or whatever. It's very rare that they pick a studio for things like gear, but they will pick a studio for things like location, especially in Los Angeles. The studio is close to my house where traffic sucks. So yeah, I want to work here versus other places. They'll pick a studio because they have parking. You know, they'll pick a studio because it's near the restaurant I like.
Right.
You know, the back room in Glendale was notorious for that because it was right near the Glendale Galleria, where they have all these like restaurants and stuff like that. That certain artists were like, oh, they're near that great Armenian place I like or whatever. You know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so they're usually not picking it because of the gear, and you'll come to find that for the most part, most studios tend to have the same gear, 1176s and LA2As, you know, so you can go just about anywhere and get the sound you're looking for. You know, Conway here down the street from us. Why do people like to go to Conway? Because if you look outside, you know, in Conway's like outside area, they have a huge, beautiful garden, you know, and if you're in their mix room, you can look outside the window and see this lush, beautiful garden. And, you know, you kind of feel like you're in the tropics kind of thing. You know, there's always going to be reasons people pick studios other than the fact that they got gear and it's a studio, you know. So like for us, we barbecue a lot. That's why I like it around here. You know, it's a great way to break up a session and just have a few moments of chill. Hey, we're going to go barbecue now, you know. Time for dinner, whatever it is, vegetables, you know, whatever you're queuing.
Okay.
And it's another way to get people into the studio. Oh, you guys barbecue. Okay. I'll work here, you know. Come back because it's good. You know, that kind of stuff.
When you're recording, what makes you drawn to, you know, whatever vocal that you end up choosing? What about that vocal is it?
Oh, that's the $1 million question. Because if we all could answer that, you know, then every vocal would, you know what, that's a tough one to say. You know, my buddy worked on a Whitney Houston project and they had 48 tracks of her vocal. Not that they needed 48 tracks of her vocal, but they had 48 tracks of her vocal. Now, how do you pick which one is the right one?
Mm-hmm.
For someone like Whitney, who every track was amazing,
Yeah.
how do you pick one out of 48 when they're all brilliant in their own way? You know, it's a tough question to answer, mainly because it's like, well, what are you looking for? You know, how long is a piece of string? It's that long, you know, and you're always going to find, especially like as a producer or engineer, that it may not be the best performance that's the right one. It may not be the most technical performance that's the right one, but it's the one that fits. It's the one that has the vibe, you know. Look at bands like the Kingsmen. They did Louie Louie. Vocals basically intelligible, you know, and it cost them like $200 to do the song, and it became a huge hit for them, so much so that the FBI had a, you know, file on them for 2 years trying to investigate what the song was about because they thought it was like communist subversive, you know, late 1950s, early 60s stuff. It's all in the history books. So, you know, it's hard to say what are you looking for? Depends who the artist is. You know, some artists you're looking for that vulnerability in their voice because that's what the song's about. You know, other artists you're looking for that anger because that's what the song's about. You know, the whole idea is to serve the song and to serve the art, you know, and you'll find that it may not be the best recorded. It may not be the best of anything, but it's the one that makes you go, yeah, I get it. Or yeah, this really speaks to me. And it's hard to say what that's going to be, you know. There's no like formula for that to go, oh yeah, if you sing it this way, it's instant, like awesome. It's just one of those things you got to work with an artist out, you know, or work out with an artist.
When you're trying to get that vocal out of an artist, how do you work the artist?
Well, it depends what we're trying to work. You know, some cases it's talking to the artist, going, you're really pissed off today. Think about that while you sing. Or, you know, you have this going on, think about that while you sing. You know, it's finding that for me to work an artist into that mindset, it's trying to get them to find that connection, whatever it is. It's a little harder when they're not the ones who wrote the song, because, well, their song may or may not have been picked by them. If it hasn't, then that's a whole different road to go down. In some cases, if they wrote the song, it's a matter of, well, let's look at your lyrics and see what may fit, may not fit, if we can write this better, that kind of stuff. You know, there's so many different ways to work it. There isn't like one size fits all. And it always comes back to who you're working with as an artist. Some artists don't want to hear any criticism. They think everything they do is just like, oh, that's gold, man. It's like, no, you can do better, you know? So the trick is, and if there's any like one thing with all of this, is to do it in such a way that they feel they thought of it.
I've heard
You
that.
know, and they want to, and you want it to where they pat themselves on the back for the good job that you did. You know, that's it in a nutshell.
I can definitely attest to that. I know when I started, I hear myself now, I'm like, that sounds so good. But, you know, my aunt recorded me and he was like, well, yeah, I was working you the whole time. And when you just start, you don't even realize you're being worked as an artist. So I can definitely see how there's a lot of skill and thought involved. But another question, how do you record your vocals? Like when you record them, do you go line by line, or do you have the artist sing through the whole song, or does it just depend on the song?
It depends on the artist, you know. I'd like to, for me personally, I like to have an artist be able to sing through the song, and then we can fix whatever lines we need to fix for whatever reasons. Because I'd like to work with artists who can do their craft. When you have to piece things together, it becomes very uninspiring very quickly.
Mhm.
You know, it becomes such a drag, where it's like, oh, we got to do this now. You know, it's like getting back to studios and why people need studios, because there's something about having the entire group, band, whatever you want to call them, in the same space at the same time that'll cause them to perform differently. And, you know, so when you have to start putting everything together piecemeal like that, it just becomes such a drag and very uninspiring. And you want to feel inspired, and you want to feel like you're doing something that's going to like change the world, whatever it is you're working on, you know? So yeah, I prefer to get people who, or work with people who can at least sing a verse completely. It definitely sounds different when they do things that way. You know, so yeah, I don't like to work line by line. There have been projects where I've had to work line by line and the paycheck was great, but I really wasn't happy doing it. You know, it's like, okay, yeah, okay.
Okay. Do you think the fact, because I know you just mentioned when having band members and everything, do you think the fact that there's not a lot of people in the studio anymore has affected, you know, how the songs come out or how everyone performs together and stuff like that, just because there's not a bunch of people you can bounce your ideas off of?
Oh yeah, no, totally. It's definitely changed the way people work. You know, that's without question. Where it gets more complicated is you get people who get, you know, attached to those ideas that they don't want to change them for anything. So yeah, it's changed stuff up a lot, not necessarily for the better. You know, there's a big difference watching an entire band play through a song and watching how people react as they play through that song with the different musicians, versus, oh, I came in and laid my drums and bass player is going to come in later in the afternoon. It sounds different and it feels different, you know, and then as you piece it all together, it sounds even more different and more weird. There's a lot to recorded music that we've let go by the wayside you know, just for convenience. As I've told my aunt before, that one of the worst things we did was go to the multi-track machine. And this is regardless of what format it is, whether it's digital or analog. And the reason I say that is because way back in audio history, whatever project you were doing, you either did it or you didn't, because there was no way to edit the medium to correct mistakes. So the band had to be on point. Not only did they have to be technically proficient to do whatever they were doing, they had to do it in a manner that some blowhard from a record label who was shilling out money for this felt like, yeah, this is something we can do and put ourselves behind and put out as a record, so you had to capture that performance, that musicality that happens when you have different players all in the same space doing their craft as best they can. There's a camaraderie that goes along with that because they think they've accomplished something, doing something very difficult or whatever it is. They feel accomplished, and as we progressed in technology, it got to the point where we could start editing things, and I could now take the verse from this song and patch it to the verse from this, the chorus from this other song, and piece these things together. And it was kind of okay because we still had people in the same space doing their craft. But if they fucked up, well, it's all right. We can just fix that. And we can splice the sections together and that sort of stuff. So the musicianship started to go downhill, so to speak. And then it got even worse when we started doing multi-track recording, because, now I really don't have to be on point, because if I fuck up, we'll just punch me in and I'll just fix that and it'll be better and everything will be done. So we started drifting away from the whole musical performance in favor of convenience. And then it really got absurd in the 70s when we gave everybody headphones and threw them all in different rooms, because this is the best recording practice for the best in isolation and fidelity is we can have the drummer in a drum room. That's a small room with his drum kit set up. And then we'll have, bass player over here, isolationed off with gobos and so forth. And we kind of just took the musicality out of it for a long time, because we said, hey, you know what? You don't need to play as a band anymore. We'll just put you as a bunch of musicians in different corners of the room and expect people to work together and perform as a band. So yeah, we don't like to do piecemeal, as you said. And I think we need to go back to having everybody in the same space. There's certain things that certain instruments do that no matter how hard you try, that's just the nature of the instrument. For example, tracking drums, you're going to get bleed through from other drums into other mics. That's just the way drums work, especially with the way drummers set them up. You're going to get some bleed through from your snare mic into other mics and so forth, and you can minimize that, but it still gives it that organic feel that you're hoping to capture and that emotions you're hoping to capture. So yeah, no, piecemeal. No piecemeal.
Yeah, I always found that kind of corny when they would have a couple of fake cymbals, for instance.
Yeah.
So you have the whole kit, but the cymbals are fake. So every time they go to hit the cymbals, nothing happens. And then they're going to record the cymbals separately. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And, as a drummer, that's
you are a drummer.
That's such an awkward thing to expect a drummer to do.
Yeah.
We're going to put you in front of your drum kit, but here, we're not going to give you real cymbals.
Just give you a pad. I'll give you a pad.
Yeah, we'll give you a pad, and then we'll overdub them later. You want people to be you want musicians to feel comfortable, and you want them to perform their best. So it's why am I going to do something that takes them out of their element?
Yeah.
That they're so used to not doing, So yeah, bring the entire band in if you can. It'll make a different record. I can't say it'll make a better record because that's subjective, but I can tell you that it'll be different and the experience will be really rewarding. There's a famous story where Frank Zappa was recording over at Bollock Sound. Now, Bollock Sound was owned by Ike Turner. And when he was working on the album Overnight Sensation, he was working at Bollock with the Frank Zappa band. And Frank had this wonderful idea where he got Tina Turner and the Ikettes to sing on a couple Frank Zappa songs. And they did an amazing performance that you couldn't have gotten anywhere else. You couldn't have got it any other way. And at the end of it all, they were like, hey, Ike, look at what we did. This is amazing. And he's like, I don't get it. And he totally was just like disappointed. And it's like, well, they did this really complicated vocal lines of background vocals that just sound awesome. That sense of accomplishment by having the entire band together, that camaraderie, all of it played a part in it. If you ever saw the movie The Wrecking Crew, it's the same idea. It was the same musicians,
Detroit, yeah.
Who really enjoyed playing together. Motown was the same way. LA was like that for a long time, where it was the same session players doing all the gigs, because not only could they do it right, they could do it right as a unit, and it made for what people felt were better records.
Yeah. Speaking of that, what's your opinion about bleed? Because just like, you're talking about, each drum is going to bleed into whatever.
Yeah.
You also have, if you do it the way you're talking about,
right?
The
bass
bleeds into the drums and et cetera, et cetera. What's your opinion about that type of stuff?
When it gets all mixed together, it doesn't matter. So having a little bit of it is okay. You don't want it to be the prominent thing on those tracks, obviously. So like, for example, if I'm recording a guitar track, I don't want the drums to be the prominent thing on the guitar track. But if the drums are in the background where the guitar track is the prominent thing, that's okay, because when I mix it all together, people won't notice anyway. We've hit that point where everybody wants a clinical recording, and it's just like, well, perfection is boring. And that whole like super clinical, no, go make a record. Even bands like Steely Dan that had very pristine recordings still had entire bands in the studio, and they were so caught up into that, they would have different bands of musicians for different songs, so this entire rhythm section for this one song was maybe not working on the other song. We'll replace the entire rhythm section, same idea. It's that camaraderie and everybody in the rooms, and bleed's just a natural part of it. Yeah, it's how you manage that bleed to where it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
We had a question from MT Champion.
Hey, how's he doing?
He's doing well. He said, ask Joe if he's used the new API Box 2 console, which he would use for tracking only. But do you think it's worth the price?
Good question. If you're into the API sound, the Box 2 apparently has enough features that people will dig. So if you're into that whole API vibe, why not? Last night when we had Lenoir in, one of the things me and him were talking about was he had this beautiful old Neve desk that was, I hate to say, the centerpiece of his studio, but he had this beautiful old Neve desk for a long time. And he's like, I use the Neve desk for mixing. That's it. So he's recording to the Radar hard disk recorders because he loves those. And literally that desk was just the mixing desk. It came out of the Radar system for mixing. He had his own little sidecars for tracking, and they were also Neve sidecars, but they were like little 10 input sidecars and so forth. And those were just specifically for tracking, so getting back to like the Box, if you're into that vibe, if you're, it seems to be like it'd be worth it if that's the thing you're looking to do with it,
So like basically, if you didn't already have API preamps or whatever, then if you wanted to add that sound, it would be worth it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And API has done some great stuff over the years. They have their own vibe thing going on, that American muscle, as people describe it, kind of thing, like muscle cars. So if you're into that sonic, it definitely will help you get there. I wouldn't kick it out of bed.
So what's the main, when you guys barbecue at the studio, what's the main draw? What do people show up to the studio to get when you guys barbecue?
Well, it depends who's in, We've had times where it's been like barbecued lobster tails.
Okay.
Other times it's been like barbecued ribs and steaks, it all depends, man. you know, and again, getting back to the whole experience, because that's what it's all about, is that, you know, experience and that kind of stuff. You talk to your artist, what do you feel like eating? You know,
Yeah.
what do you enjoy? You know,
Who's
and
the top?
yeah, we can
Who's
make
the
that
top
happen.
chef? Is it Joe on the 1 and 2s? Who's the top?
Yeah.
Okay. All
Usually
right.
it's me on the grill. You know?
That's what's up.
Well, you know, you got to have these skill sets. You know, not just for studio work, but just in life. Everybody should know how to barbecue and do it in a manner that like tastes good. You know, you and your burgers, man. It's the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I got into that because we have a spot over here. I know you guys in the West Coast, you have your thing, but over here, you know, in New York, Manhattan, I love the Jackson Hole burgers. So it's
Yeah.
like, that's all I've ever aimed at. You know what I'm saying? It's not these McDonald's, where's the beef type of, it's like, you
Yeah.
know, and that's what I've been aiming at. And yeah, since we've been kind of isolated and not going to too many restaurants for the past couple of years,
Right.
you know, I've been like honing my technique, making 100, 200 burgers. And I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm doing now, you know, but before that, I didn't know anything at all. I was like, just take me to Wendy's. I'm good.
Oh yeah, man. You know, yeah, I was the same way in that respect. When I first started, you know, doing it for the studio, it was awful. But,
right, trial and error.
You know, I ain't gonna bullshit that one. No, it was awful. Our first brisket, I bought the wrong brisket. Because I didn't know. You know, I bought corned beef that you made into a corned beef hash that was a brisket versus actually buying a brisket. But we ate it anyway, you know, and we learned from there.
We were too hungry not to eat it by the time you could.
Totally learned from there with that one. You know, it's like you get better, like anything else. It's like audio. You get faster, you get better at editing and engineering as the more times you do it. You know, same thing with like the Radio Ready Mixes comment. You know, just go do it.
Yep.
And eventually people will like really dig it. You know, so yeah, artists dig it that we do it because it's a different experience.
Yeah.
You know, I can't say other studios in town do the same thing. I don't know. I know we do though. And we have no problem like setting up the grill and doing our thing with that.
Yeah. Maat's our resident, I think, Vietnamese food.
Yeah.
Aficionado. What's pho? Tell us what pho is. Even if I'm not even pronouncing it, is it pho or pho?
Do you guys actually have pho out there?
I don't. I
It's
wouldn't
New York,
know.
man. They got all kinds of restaurants.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure we have it. I'm
Yeah.
sure we have it. I've never looked for it, so I don't know where.
Oh, bro, yeah, you
gotta
have
to have it. It has to be here. It has to be here. I'm just saying. I never heard about it other than you. You're the only person I know that's like, yeah, I like this PHO thing, however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Like when you say, what the pho is pho.
Yeah.
But look, sticky rice, chicken and sticky rice or the sausage, you gotta try it. Like if you come out to California, we'll get you some tacos and some pho, all kinds of stuff. But I'm telling you,
all right,
like try sticky rice and their chicken or their sausage.
Pho, okay.
Yeah, bro. Yeah,
I'll find it. It has to be around here somewhere. It has to be around here somewhere. I'll take a picture of it when I find it.
But I mean, you guys are talking about the hamburgers. I went to cooking some deluxe hamburgers, like right before you started posting those pics, Bill.
Yeah,
that's what I was doing. The deluxe cheese. I was doing it out. The burger. What's that burger?
I thought you were just eating leaves and noodles and stuff.
You tripping? You tripping?
You tell. Now I'm interested. Tell me.
There's your chat for this hour. There's your info from chat for this hour.
Oh, okay, nice. I'll be right there.
Watch. And if they have it, like the chicken and sticky rice and the sausage, all of that. When you come out to California, like watch. We'll get you
that in New York, man. He just seems
Yeah,
to
but
get
you know
out
how
of
we
his
have the top, like we
neighborhood
got all
more.
this Mexican food out. Do y'all have a lot of Mexican food out there? I mean, like really Mexican food.
Yeah, we have actual Mexicans. Yeah, we have
And not
different
all
Mexicans from we have different Mexicans from yours because ours are from Puebla. So
Yeah.
Okay.
yours are from a different area. But yeah, we've got real deal Mexican food.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now back to Cherokee.
They also got the Soup Man.
The Soup Man.
Soup Man.
You know what they talking about, Bill?
Soup Man, no soup for you. The Jerry
Yeah, they got
Seinfeld
the Soup
thing.
Man.
The Jerry Seinfeld thing. That
Oh,
no soup for
okay.
you. I don't know.
Gotcha.
I'm just joking. I don't know what
You've never been to the Soup Man? Holy shit.
Soup Man here in New York.
Yeah.
You see what I mean, Bill? Look. He's telling you about a place in New York. That's what I mean about Joe and food, bro. Remember I said I called Joe?
Yeah, but yeah, you did say, tell me where the places
Soup
are to
Man,
go.
the original location on 55th, you need to go.
Okay.
That's it.
55th
like
West Side.
Yeah, it's like 55th and 8th or 55th and 9th.
Okay, that makes sense.
Around there. Yeah.
It's over there near Restaurant Row. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got a little tiny shack. It's the best ever.
That's probably where
I'd also
Seinfeld
send them
got
to Hero
that
Boy,
thing
but I heard they closed, which is too bad because we used to go to the AES conventions, and right around the corner from the Javits Center was Hero Boy.
Yeah.
Oh, Hero Boy was awesome. Anyway.
The MT champion and all of you other Nashville homies was cracking. Nice to have y'all checking us out.
Nashville folk.
Yeah, the
Addiction
when we went out
Studios
to
is
Nashville
available for sale. Speaking of Nashville, Addiction Studios is up for sale. Speaking of Nashville,
man, the studios, as technical as the studios are, that vibe that some of the studios have that is totally not technical. Like the mixing boards, like me, MT, whoever, I'm forgetting who all was there. We were out in Nashville, and the studio had like it was alligator, leather alligator, whatever hide on the console.
Nice.
Whole vibe thing going on, just like at Joe and them studio. When you walk in, there's a whole vibe, history, as technical as much as Joe is a super nerd. Like Joe, like as much as he knows all this stuff, like NEATS modules, like the military NEATS modules and whatever, all this technical stuff, when you walk in, you don't get that feel. You get this vibe in there like that. What was that 300-year-old chair you have in there? Or two, it was two of them.
Yeah.
Right?
No, they're 500 years old.
Well, look, 500-year-old chair made out of the whole tree or something. They carved it from a whole tree or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
500 years ago or whatever. Like, it's crazy when you walk in there. There's a feel. There's a super technical, but you don't feel that when you go in there at Cherokee or some of these other studios.
Well, again, it's that whole experience. You know, you want people to feel comfortable. And you want them to come in and be like, yeah, this place I can make a record. You know?
I don't just feel comfortable. I feel like I smoked a joint or something when I go in there. Like
that's because you probably did.
You feel chilled out. Like
I ain't gonna tell anybody, you know.
Yeah, but you walk in and it's like stress leaves or something. Like it's a place to. It's like something comes over you, relaxing.
Well, again, you know, like we touched upon when we first started, studios are supposed to provide certain things and give you that experience, you know, and what you don't want is give the experience of like stress. You want to give the experience of creativity, and I want to create.
He's back
and I feel like I can make my best work here because, you know, I'm with people who know their stuff. I'm doing things that I think are cool, you know, and then I'm in an environment where I got a 500-year-old chair, you know, which funny he brings the chairs up, but we one day as a studio found them either on Craigslist or somewhere in someone's backyard, and we thought they were really cool, and we picked them up and thought nothing of it. And then someone was walking through the place who's like an art dealer, antique historian kind of thing.
What are these?
You know, and they were like, "Oh my God, you have these chairs." And we're like, "Okay, we got these chairs. Yeah. What about them?" And she's like, "Oh, well, you know what they are? And we're like, no, we don't. We found them in Brentwood, someone's like backyard, and we thought they were cool. We like horse traded for them, and she's like, oh, well, these are from the South Pacific and they're about 500 years old.
Wow.
And what they would do is whenever, the Europeans sent missionaries over to convert people over to Christianity, because, our God's the right God and your God's the wrong God.
Right.
As a thank you gift, they would carve these chairs out of a solid block of wood and give them to the missionaries. And they're pretty ornate, and in the back of the chair where your back would go, there's like 2 keys that are carved out, and supposedly they're supposed to be the keys to the kingdom of heaven.
Okay.
That's what she told us. I'll buy it because I don't know anything else about them other than they're old.
You're the expert.
And that's a great story. But it's that kind of stuff that gives part the experience. We were lucky we found them. People dig them, and like, oh, his chair's 500 years old and it's still together. It's like, yeah, it's one solid piece of wood, and the termites haven't hit it yet,
Right.
So yeah, again, the whole experience, the whole package. You want to be a studio that people want to go and come in and work at. You don't want to be a studio that people feel that I can't work here because I got to watch my back. Someone might shoot me or something, whatever it is.
About it. Yeah, my aunt, mixed by science, tuned in. He said to tell you what's up.
What's cracking, bruh? Yeah, we gotta do stuff where we get the all the family together on these because we got a big family online.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. We just wanted to kick off our new series right and have the man with the plan, Joe, set us up. We wanted to start it off. That's right.
It's only downhill from here, man.
That's right.
It's funny walking in with Joe, or like when I walk in with certain people, they have different skill sets. Like producer Kui is a battle DJ, so when I go in with him, that's a skill set that most of us don't have, and he's a trophy-winning battle DJ.
Yeah,
and you walk in with Joe, and you got this super nerd that you just cannot bullshit.
Not at all.
Cannot bullshit Joe. He will bullshit.
No, you can. It's just
trying to bullshit him.
You can try it. You can try it. It's just not gonna work.
Go ahead, man. I just don't have time for nonsense. I don't. It's like I enjoy making records. Let's just make records and do cool things.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's what we're all in to do, is cool things, and hopefully we get paid for it.
That's right. Hey, yep.
Do what you love. You never work a day in your life.
That's right.
But now, Joe, you like when you see I help people or whatever.
Yeah.
Reality, a straight reality for me. Only a handful of people have helped back, as far as me. And you're one of them. No ifs, ands, or buts. Like, you're one of them, like one of the main people who's ever given back. And I don't know if people tell you or whatever, but thank you. Like,
you're welcome.
Thank you.
I don't do it to have people tell me thank you. I do it because we're all in this together.
Yes, sir.
There's that whole, what is it? If the tide rises, all the boats rise up kind of thing.
Yeah. Right.
So,
rising tide lifts all boats. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that kind of vibe. We all should be helping each other. We all should be in like friendly competition with one another to make better records, and to put out artists that people want to like listen to and enjoy.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be trying to, put people down or any of that stuff. And yeah, there's times I'll say things that people think come out harsh, but it's not that I'm trying to be harsh. I'm just trying to be to the point, and the reality is there's only so many hours in the day. Let's be as creative and do as many cool things as we can in those hours.
Yeah.
And if it means being abrupt and to the point, then it means being abrupt and to the point.
Yeah. Let's just, let's get to it.
Let's cut to the chase here. Let's have some fun. It's like last night we're working, and as part of the whole thing we were doing, we didn't get to do a complete sound check of things. We didn't get to do the whole, hey man, can you play the kick drum? Okay, cool. Can you play the snare drum?
Yeah.
Because by the time the band was ready, they thought we were ready, whether we were or we weren't. And they just started playing and started doing their thing. And because we had done enough, prep ahead of time, getting back to knowing your stuff and knowing the songs and knowing these things, I managed to sneak a copy of the song list. And since I'm familiar with the artist and their work, I knew what songs were going to happen. I knew kind of what was going to go on, but they just started playing. And did you get that? I hope you got that. It's like, yeah, we got that,
Yeah, just keep going. We got it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, they were in that moment. They were in that space.
Keep going.
And it would have totally blown the entire vibe of what they were doing if we would have been like, hey man, can we check and make sure that, because you got 2 amps and you have 2 guitars, your pedal steel and your Les Paul. Can we make sure the amp on the Les Paul is working? Can we, it totally would have just taken them out of whatever energy, creativeness, whatever you want to call it, whatever that moment was, would have totally just like killed it. And it wouldn't have been like we killed it in a good way. It would have been just like, and so you don't want to be in those moments where it's like, yeah, I don't know about this place.
Yeah.
You want to be in the moment where they're going, this is cool. This is awesome. So yeah. Where was I going with this other than just like being ready and being in the moment and, that kind of stuff.
Backing up to our Nashville conversation, MT Champion says, tell Ma'at that was probably Trace Horse Studio.
Yep, that was it. That was it. Trace Horse Studio. Dope place. Wonderful vibe. Blew my mind.
Nice, man. Vibes are always good to have in the studio.
You'll go in there and it's so country to Nashville-ish. You'll develop a twang.
Well, right?
You didn't have one before. You're like tarnation.
Well, shit, son.
Tarnation.
Next thing you know, there'll be a spittoon right there next to the console.
Right. for your tobacco.
Yeah, for your chew. Oh man, yeah,
Well, all right, I'm out. Y'all got any more for Joe?
Yeah. Anybody else want to ask me something? You'll be seeing more of me. You've been warned.
Oh yeah. We're getting back to do this. We just need to get the new format together. You know what I'm saying? Because back in the day, we used to do it on Google Hangouts. They totally trashed. Google themselves trashed Google Hangouts. So we need to figure out a new format.
They got replaced by Zoom.
Yeah, well, yeah, they did, but Zoom still isn't optimum as far as actually broadcasting. So that's why we're going from Zoom to YouTube. So now we got the format going. Thanks to you, you've got us moving forward, and we're gonna get this together. And so we're gonna do this way more regularly. So yeah,
man, that'll definitely be good.
We'll be
It's
seeing
good to
you
see all you guys.
Great.
It's nice to know you all are healthy and alive still.
You too, man. Hey.
It was a crazy last couple of years for a lot of people, and we lost a lot of the good ones.
Yeah, we did.
So it's good to see people still around and still doing their thing, whatever that thing is.
Yeah, so we're gonna get back to the socializing, whether we do it virtually or whether we do it IRL. We're getting it back together. That's what's up.
Yeah, come out this summer for the NAMM show, man. That's what you need to do. I'll take you to Hector's.
Sounds good.
Matt knows about Hector's.
Yep. Hey, Bill. So for now, we're probably gonna rent an Airbnb again.
Oh, here we go. We're gonna get a mansion.
Come out for the NAMM show. Come to the studio.
We enjoyed ourselves at that Airbnb. So if you're gonna come out, let us know, because we all chip in, get an Airbnb.
All right.
And we have the ride taken care of, all of that. We get cars, Airbnb. You got a posse you're rolling with. We can roll up on Joe when he's making coffee at NAMM.
That's what's up. Hey.
Who says I'm making coffee at NAMM this year?
What you gonna do this time? Coffee, tea, alcohol? Man, Joe and them be doing some expensive, whatever the hell they be doing. Like they be having, you got to go where Joe's at to see what they're doing. Like it's coffee.
Okay,
tea,
so when I worked for Avalon Designs, we had the espresso maker
Mm-hmm.
at the
Okay. Yeah.
booth, and we made espressos for everybody because that was just like a great way to socialize. And this is the coolness of NAM. This is the coolness of things that when you can plan them properly, a lot of fruitful cultivation goes on. So back in 2017, I want to say it was, we had a day at NAM where Avalon, some people who sell us parts, wanted to come by and chat with us. And these are like some of our part suppliers for building stuff. They came and left and didn't talk to us because they told us our booth was full. So first thing I hear about was, Joe, what the hell's going on? The booth is full. It's like, well, yeah, because we were having a moment. Everybody showed up. And they're like, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, okay, well, check this out. It all started off with Ma'at, you know Bill Smith?
Yes.
Everyone knows Bill Smith. Bill Smith is amazing.
Yes, sir.
So Bill Smith was palling around with Jeff Emmerich at the NAM show. And Bill stopped by to say hi to me, and Jeff came with him. So while they were there, we're chatting a bit. I offered Jeff an espresso, we'll make you one and so forth. And he was like, oh, lovely. This will be great.
Lovely.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So Bill and Jeff are there. At the same time, there was a kid named Dylan. And when I mean
that's our boy Dylan. Yeah.
Dylan had hit me up prior to the show going, hey, I'm going to be at NAM. I'd love to come by and talk to Avalon. I'm interested in being a classical recording engineer. So I said, great,
our
come
boy
on by.
Dylan, Al Smith's boy.
Oh, yeah. So Dylan happened to come by at the same time Jeff Emmerich was there. It couldn't have planned out any better. Pure luck on Dylan's part. But here we are at the show, and I'm like, Dylan, let me introduce you to my buddy Jeff here. And on the outside, you can see him going, hi, Mr. Emmerich, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
On the inside, you could see the fanboy going, I'm meeting with Jeff Emmerich. And at that point, other engineers like Adam Mosley showed up at the same time. And it just so happened to be a Saturday afternoon. Everybody was at the Avalon booth getting coffee because we all needed to pick me up. Yeah. And they knew I had the hookup. You know?
Sir.
So Dylan and Jeff start talking, and they get into this whole deep dive about classical recording because Dylan loves his classical recording, and that's awesome. And at one point, Dylan brought up the Philips label out of Europe, or the European division for Philips, doing classical recording in the 50s to mag film, 35 millimeter with the optical track, and how amazing it was, and all of that stuff that goes with it, that Dylan was just like, yeah, it was so amazing. And it's catalog number, blah, 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 blah. And he's talking to Jeff about this, and Jeff is talking back to him about classical recording and catalog number, blah, 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 blah. And for 20 minutes, they had this, nobody existed. Yeah. Dylan talking to Jeff talking to Dylan, and me and Bill Smith just kind of like going, okay, cool, and the whole booth was like that. So yeah, it was cool that we were full.
That's great.
And it was cool that we had all those people there having a hang and, getting to know each other and getting to be part of this community that is audio. Yes, the fact that wherever Jeff went, people followed, helped us a lot. But it's like, oh, Jeff's at the Avalon booth. Does Jeff use Avalon? It's like, I don't know. Honestly, if he didn't, that's fine with us too. Jeff is cool. Jeff's earned his right to be cool.
That's right.
I'm not going to question whatever he decides to do and be like, hey, Jeff, check this out. It wasn't anything like that at all. It was just a cool hang. So NAM can be like that. And as far as like me dispensing coffee this year, who knows? I know last 2019, the last NAM, 2020, the last NAM, I had my magic elixir that I was handing out to people to stave off getting sick from NAM. And I know so many people who I gave that to that didn't get sick at all. So I'm not going to tell you what was in it, but if you read the history books, you'll find out what was in it pretty quickly. Yeah. And it was good, long story short with that, the British Navy, when they had the tall ships that would sail around the world in the name of Great Britain, would give their Navy sailors 8 ounces of rum a day. and the rum, basically killed all the germs that they were getting from being out at sea. So we were handing out little things of rum that were really strong that people would put in their coffees and, go about the NAMM show and all this stuff. And, it's just another way to connect with people. That was the same year we had the party at Grasslands, which Grasslands is a Brazilian joint. And unfortunately they screwed up a few things, so we won't be back there at Grasslands. But yeah, for NAMM, there's Hector's, which we went to in 2019. And the good part with Hector's was the Mexican seafood was amazing. The bad part with Hector's is they have a band. And it's not that I don't like mariachi bands. Here's what happened there. We had a 20-piece Mexican brass band playing banda music.
Right next to you.
Well, not only that, they all had a microphone in every one of their horns. And the drums had microphones, and there was like 2 drummers. And the singer had a microphone. And we're in this like kind of small restaurant that does amazing seafood, that because everybody showed up late, like Ma'at was late, they get there when the band starts playing. So here he is trying to eat tacos or whatever. And there's like a trumpet like right in front of him going, brap, brap, brap. But on the upside, the food was good,
That's what's up.
So same idea, man. We'll all go to Hector's.
He couldn't hear anymore, but the tacos were good.
Joe was passing out earplugs. He had earplugs.
Well, I warned everybody too, man. I know these things.
That's what's up. Yep.
So man, come on out for NAMM, dude. It'll be good.
Sounds good. Like you said, it's all about community. So that's a great story to end up on. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate all of y'all here. Appreciate Andre. He's not here. He's getting some 40 winks out in Germany because it's like 2 a.m. out there at this point. But hey, thanks, Bill. Man. Yeah, what's up?
You see, we had a singer-songwriter and she actually was able to hang with us.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Appreciate you. We need you back for the next episode. Bring all of your 2020 Barbara Walters questions with you next time. And this is a great time. Appreciate all of y'all. And dude, I'm good. Any final statements by anybody?
Yeah, be well, be safe.
Yeah.
Continue to create.
Can't wait till we all can get back around each other.
That's about it.
Thank you guys.
Yes, sir.
Take care of yourself as best you can. That's about it from me.
I'm going to get some of Joe's rum.
There you go.
Right. Exactly. Stay safe. All right. Appreciate all y'all. Have a good night.
Of course, man. Have a good one, guys.